Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Manhattan Community Board 3's Health, Seniors, Human Services, Youth Education, Human Rights Committee. My name is May, and I am the chair. We have quite an agenda ahead of us this evening, and we will do a little pivoting around because our speakers are coming at different times and also need to leave at different times. Okay, since, let's see, what time is it now? It's 6:31. So our secretary for, Deborah Glass. So we'll start with the attendance and roll call for approval of the minutes. So Deborah, can you take the roll call?
I'm not used to multitasking like this anymore. Hi, so sure. Mei Lee,
Here, yes.
Thomas Rosa,
Oh, he's absent.
Anna Calderon,
Absent.
Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Larry Fenn,
Here.
Deborah Jeffrey, I'm correcting my name, Jeffries Glass, I'm here. Arnett Scott, Rodney Washington, Carmen Perez.
Second part of
Was that Carmen?
No, it's Arnett. Did you say Arnett Scott?
Yes, I did. I got you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. Yeah, our secretary Thomas is out for the night, so thank you, Deborah, for taking the roll call and the minutes.
Sure.
Oh, Chris, how much time do you have?
Just 15 minutes or so.
Okay, just 15 minutes. So we will, Larry, so Larry, could you take a minute just to explain the procedures of the meeting? And then,
Yeah.
and then Chris, you can go ahead and I'll introduce you and your agenda.
Good evening, everyone. As you've noticed, our meeting is being recorded. If you are not a committee member, you can please put your name and the affiliation that is appropriate in the chat box. If you're experiencing any technical difficulty, for example, if you can't take yourself off of mute or you're having trouble hearing or connecting, please drop a message in the chat and I'll reach out to try to help you resolve it. We ask that the chat only be used for these two purposes, so attendance or technical assistance. During the meeting, we ask that everyone remain on mute when you're not acknowledged to speak by the chair to reduce the background noise during the meeting. And our chair will sort of call on members of the committee and then everyone else. If you would like to ask a question or speak, please raise your virtual hand. We will call on you in the order that the chair sort of sees, and we'll also keep an eye out for physical hands being raised in case you're having issues. And there's a 2-minute time limit for speaking. Welcome everyone to the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Okay, so we are, as you see from our agenda on the website, we have 3 main items tonight. One is the Windsor Hotel, second is the Seward Park School Court, and the third is district needs and budget priorities. So we're going to switch things up a little bit because of our speakers. So we will first go into the district needs budget priority agenda item. We have one of our speakers today is Council Member Chris Marte, and he will talk to us about funding for senior citizens, seniors and older adults. He is a member of the City Council Committee on Aging, and they oversee DFTA, which is the agency that oversees and funds many senior programs in our community. So Chris, you may go ahead, and we especially want you to talk about what you see in terms of funding for seniors, what you think we should be advocating for. We want to be strategic. Maybe there are things that are at risk that our community needs that we need to include in our priorities. And just overall in the district, I know you visit senior centers quite a bit. So, what you're seeing in terms of that.
Awesome. Well,
So
thank you.
it's a lot, but
No, I'm gonna prepare for it. But thank you.
okay.
And it was great seeing you earlier today with Susan and Deborah at the ribbon cutting for the new Mount Sinai facility at the Rivington House. So it was good to see you there. I'm gonna give some kind of basic overview information at first, just to level set everyone, so everyone knows kind of like where we're at with the Department of Aging, how much money they have, and how the overall budget is looking. And then I'll go into more specifics of what advocates are asking and what the city council is asking of the mayor. And maybe that would help you formulate some points for your budget priorities. So even though these numbers sound good, they're kind of hidden. The New York City Aging fiscal year for 2024 budget actually increased by 2.4 million from 466.7 million. However, that increase was only due because of contract negotiation with DC 37. As many of you know, there was a 3% peg that the mayor did for almost every single agency. And so even though it looks like the budget for DFTA has increased, it actually has gone down. And I'll explain more details about that later. But first, I want to talk about some of the other ways we get funding to DFTA. One being the state budget, which really remained unchanged from last year. We're still getting 44 million from the state budget that concluded a month ago. So that remains the same. And then for the federal government, we actually increased our budget from the feds from 12.3 million to 13.4 million. This was actually a surprise for us. We thought we would get decreased amount, especially as we're moving away from the pandemic and all the emergency orders that came into play. And the mayor has used this increase to his advantage, especially when he's looking for, I won't call them savings, but I'll call them cuts. The administration likes to say that all of this is savings, but we're really not saving money. We're actually cutting these agencies. And that's why I'm excited to hear that you guys are going to advocate for DFTA, because as many of you know, we have the fastest growing and possibly the largest aging population in the city here in Lower Manhattan. And so with the state budget, they actually increased $9.3 million to expand in-home services for elder adults, 2.5 million increase for long-term care program, so that hires more staff to visit nursing homes and other facilities to improve the quality of care. $1 million goes to NORCs, which we have a lot here downtown, luckily, and 4.5% increase for COLA, which go to diverse direct service programs, which a lot of our nonprofits here locally provide. For folks that don't know how the Department of Aging budget is broken down, it's broken down into 6 program areas: administration and contract agency support, case management, home care, senior services and meals, that's 1, senior employment and benefits, and senior services. 5 of the 6 of programs received cuts. The only ones that did not receive cut this year was home care. And so when you look at case management, we're going to get $5 million less than we got at fiscal 2023. This is due to the one-time funding that we got of $3 million that we pushed the mayor last year to put at the closing of last year's budget, and $2 million that comes from discretionary funds from the city council specifically for case management. And so one thing to know now is that the executive budget does not include what the council fights for and typically wins. And so I'll explain what we're advocating and how that works a little bit later. The biggest cuts and the most worrisome, and we actually had a big rally 2 weeks ago, is the cut that they want to do at senior centers and meals. So they want to cut this budget anywhere between, depending who you talk to, from about 12 million to 17 million. 5 million goes to a reduction of home delivered meals, which is super important in our district. And I know I saw Eric Diaz on earlier, who does a lot of home delivered meals, but UA3 does that as well. And $7 million cut to our older adult centers. So this is our Grand Street settlement, our Henry Street settlement. Hamilton Madison has a senior center down at 100 Gold. And so this is where our seniors go to hang out, take music classes, do arts, and just have that sense of community. Especially, it's important now is that one of the biggest factors when we see mental illness for our seniors is isolation. And so, our adult centers is where they congregate and where they feel safe and protected. Another of these cuts is actually to our senior centers and is $50 million less than fiscal year 2023. So it's going to be, it doesn't include these cuts, typically the 40 million that the city council puts. So the mayor is trying to cut his side by $8 to $10 million. The city council, and I talked to the chair before getting on this call earlier today, Crystal Hudson, and she says that she believes the council will be able to get our 40 million in, but we don't know until that handshake happens, but that's what we're fighting for. Our main priorities are to make sure that there are no cuts to home delivered meals, to our senior centers, and to our senior services, right? Because it's not just the seniors, but these are jobs on the line that employ a lot of local residents as well on the Lower East Side and Chinatown. Scroll down. One, it's okay news. We got less cuts to staff than other agencies have. For this department, there were only 15 positions that the mayor deemed to not fill. These were vacant positions going into this year. And so one way they thought of providing quote unquote cuts was not filling these 15 positions. And 8 of those positions really impact delivering services to seniors. So the people that administer the senior service program within DFDA. And so some notable successes this year outside of the cuts that have happened with DFDA is that they just launched New York City cabinet for older New Yorkers. This is the first time where they're actually allowing committees of seniors with staff and administration to create kind of a better rollout and strategy of how to connect with our seniors. And one of the things that came out of this, especially out of the early groups, was the Join Us campaign, which the city launched last fall to really target a lot of seniors who have been isolated. So you see a lot of these advertisements on the buses, on the trains. People have gotten a newsletter to join their local senior centers. And one of the arguments the mayor or the administration has made for these budget cuts with these home delivered meals is that they're trying to get more people into the community centers. However, I think they're just really talking out of their mouth because they're also trying to cut senior centers. So they're not just trying to cut these home delivered meals, they're trying to cut both. And so what the advocates have been calling for, the advocates have been calling for an increase in COLA to help our human services contract. They want $14 million for home delivered meals. They want $46 million for our senior centers and congregated meals. And they want an additional $4 million for weekend home delivered meals. Especially now when we look at what's happening with inflation and you look at the price of milk or the price of eggs, we think a lot more seniors are desperate and have huge meal insecurity and are making that decision of whether they pay rent or have a food on their table. So we are asking for more money this year from the advocates than was previously given before. In addition, they want 1.4 million for case management, 15 million from home care program, and 7.5 million from the administration for digital literacy. Vision Urbana has launched this past year. We were able to provide some funding because one of the issues we see for seniors is that there are a lot of digital scams that happen to them, whether it's someone selling them a cell phone on the corner of the street, or they get an email saying, oh, you have won a prize, or you're getting something in the mail, and they give their information. And typically people have lost a lot of money. So this digital literacy and protection is a really important arm to that. Additionally, we want to make sure that the mayor provides at least 1,000 new affordable senior housing units annually. Fund the SARA program. SARA program is the HPD program that gives housing to older adults. And right now, the average unit is around $5,000 that they provide for these units. We want to increase it to $7,500 to make sure that more people can be housed, especially our seniors. So that's what the advocates are calling for. The city council officially has asked for $18 million when it comes to home delivered meals, increased funding to senior center food and outreach by 51 million. So a little bit more than what the advocates were calling for. And don't worry, I'm going to provide all these detailed information to May so you guys can have it for your resolution and your outlook. We also want to give money to home deliver meals on vans, which would help people also collect information and not just food. And also we want to increase the growth of home care programming as well to 14.8 million. And we want to restore the case management with 3 million additional dollars. The last of our ask is to, as I said before, is to continue to provide IT education for older adults. This is not just programming, but also give over 10,000 tablets to older adults, because what we see is that the tablets that they're getting from the street corners are bugged, come with fine print, that they have to pay a lot more in the future. So we think that the city should just provide this for free of service to make sure that our seniors, whether they need to send emails or actually communicate with their family through FaceTime or through Zoom. So that's kind of the overview that I have for you today. Don't forget, each council member does have discretionary fund. And so that's how, regardless of what happens on the citywide budget, my office has been able to give a lot of funds to our nonprofits here locally. We've been able to provide funding to almost every single senior centers, especially when it comes to providing meals to them, but also we want to make sure that we fund music classes or arts classes at each one of these centers. And all that information is transparent on the city council website. If you go to budget, you can look at what organizations we have funded to provide services at these senior centers, or the funding we gave directly to the senior centers to have their own programming. Right now, we're still in the middle of our budget on what we're going to allocate. That's going to be due later this week, tomorrow. So I'll have a better picture of the bare minimum of what we're going to fund at our council office. Sometimes we do partner up with the speaker's office to get additional costs, especially when it comes to capital improvement. We know there are a lot of capital requests, especially around the Smith houses when it comes to Hamilton Madison for their community center. I think that was the big one this year. And we also partner with the borough president's office to kind of make up the gaps. And so I'm happy to take a few questions. I think I was able to leave 3 or 4 minutes for questions.
Okay, thank you. So if you have a question, please raise your hand, your Zoom hand, and I will call on you. Okay, Susan Stetzer, followed by July Young. Susan.
Sure, thank you. So it seems like these are, particularly the cuts to senior centers and meals, are very much equity issues, and it impacts people in our community much more than people in some of the other committees. Is this ever brought up or discussed as part of the budget issues?
Yes, I think it's usually a headliner. Where we see a lot of our community centers are in working class communities of color, right? You look at Community Board 3, right? Like if you ever go to Henry Street Settlement, if you go to Grand Street Settlement, everyone is a person of color. Everyone probably is a working class person or is living off, their pension or benefits or Medicare. And so that's why we're fighting hard for this. I got to give it up to Chair Hudson. She has been on the ball, making sure that committee members know what's happening, how to fight. And we had a great turnout. I think we had over 500 or 600 seniors outside of City Hall a few weeks ago. And I think it was a really powerful statement of what was the line on the sand of what we're going to do this upcoming budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, July Young, followed by Carrie Chan.
Thank you, May. Hi, Councilmember Marte. So 2 questions. Well, number 1, can we, in the coming year, since we are, looking into the budget for the fiscal 24 year, can we fix all of the potholes in the district? Please.
Yeah.
They are
Okay,
very
okay,
senior unfriendly, pedestrian unfriendly, and also stroller unfriendly.
That's not this committee.
And
Yeah, so we'll talk about the potholes later, okay?
just one
Can we
thing
talk
on
about the
that.
potholes later? Okay.
Just one thing on that. If you do see one that's dangerous, just email my team. We've been able, depending on where the pothole is, we've been working with either the Department of Transportation or Parks to put that on their priority list to fill. And we've been able to fix a few streets like East Broadway, right in front of Knickerbocker. So just let us know. And if you could send us a photo, if not, we'll go and take a photo as well.
Great. Second question. What is the city council and perhaps, on the state level, is there a plan to manage with the budget, the revenue shortfall that we're now seeing?
And so that's the misinformation that's been out there. We actually have seen a revenue increase. When the mayor did his initial forecast of the budget, it was around $102 billion. But because we've gotten so much more from either property tax or income tax, it actually increased by $4 billion. And so the council's position is, why is the mayor cutting all these agencies when we actually have more money than we expected by $4 billion? And typically the city council budget team is much better than the mayor's team. I think for the past 30 budgets, we've been right 28 of those 30 times. And what we project is additional revenue increase in the next few years. And so all this information is provided online on the council's website when it comes to projections. And so you can look there or reach out to our office and we'll be able to provide that as well.
Thank you. The projection of
Okay,
extra 4
okay,
million.
I'm gonna, okay,
4 billion.
July, okay, we need to move on, because the council member is here for a short time and we have a long agenda. So the questions that people asked should be related to what he was talking about. And he was talking about the senior budget and particularly the DFTA budget. Okay, and we'll have many
Understood.
opportunities to talk to him about everything else. So the next person will be Carrie, followed by Carmen, followed by Indrani.
Hi, Chris.
Carrie.
Thank you.
Hey, how you
So
doing?
Carrie, you're asking about seniors, right?
I actually don't have a question. I just want to make a comment. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a principal conference by one of the spaces in Essex Crossing, which is affiliated with Grand Street Settlement. And we saw so many senior citizens like dancing and singing and having access to so many programs that I had to ask, one of the an employee that were registering all the senior citizen. So I was like, how do you get funding for all of these services? And you know what she told me? She goes, oh, it's from all of our council members. That's how we get funding. So I just wanted to give a huge shout out to our council member, Christopher Monte, for thank you so much for really investing in our senior citizens. Because when we were there the whole day, they were so happy and so joyful, and it was just incredible. So when you were talking about that, it just made me smile and just made me think back of how happy and how fortunate they felt. So thank you so much for all of your support.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carmen Perez, followed by Indrani Rivera.
Carmen, I think you're on mute.
Hello and good evening. I work out of the Cooper Square Committee NORC program. But my question with regards to the budget and senior programming, one, I didn't hear anything about staffing, which is usually an issue for senior programs and NORCs alike. We're trying to see if we can, well, at least for the staffing, that's there's something that's comparable to a living wage. And also along with that, I didn't hear anything about extending the budget for nursing in these, particularly in NORCs. I know that ever since we've gotten the budget for it, we now have a nurse available, and it has done a world of difference. And I know that the budget for the nursing program sunsets at the end of the month. So I don't, I would be remiss if we all of a sudden didn't have them anymore. They have been an integral part of the program. And for anyone that I've spoken to that has a nurse on hand, it has done wonders for them as well. And the seniors have, been much better for it.
Yeah, so I did mention staffing.
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
This is staffing in DIFTA, not at
The
individual.
centers itself, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so they are planning to not fill 15 seats, 15 positions that are vacant now. So it won't be, no one's losing their job, they just won't fill the additional, but that's just right now. The council is pushing back on that because we think every one of these positions are crucial to make sure that the process works fairly efficient. And I think for the NORCs, as of right now, they're going to continue to have nurses. I mentioned that at the top is, part of the programming that was already embedded in this budget is to make sure that we have that outreach by nurses. So that was kind of the additional, let me see the official title. Okay, yeah, so for that, the budget hasn't been cut for that.
Oh, okay, thank you. Indrani?
Hello. Hi, Christopher. I see you all over the neighborhood, and I always stop and say hello to you. So it's nice to see you here now that I've joined the community board. But my question is, with all these cuts, to the services, in-person services and delivery, what does it actually look like? Because I'm a volunteer at Grand Street Settlement. So does that look like that they will be stopping lunch service and some of the great things like the art programs and all that they do at Grand Street? So I just would like to get a snapshot of what these cuts are doing.
So possibly, they're not set in stone yet. We haven't agreed to a budget yet. And so so there's the way the budget works. In the beginning of the year, the mayor does a preliminary budget. And then we push back, we have oversight hearings, we make sure that there's no funny numbers. And then eventually we kind of give our own proposal of what things should look like. And then the mayor creates an executive budget plan. And so with that plan is what we use before we go into the final negotiations for the budget. And this is where the city council says, don't cut this, or we can give additional funding to X, Y, and Z. And so that's where we're at now. We're going to continue to fight to make sure that there aren't any cuts, especially for DIFTA. And so, but that's what the cuts would do. If we had those cuts, especially to our senior centers, they might have to cut some staff, they might have to cut some programming. And these home deliver meals, like, I don't know what's going to happen to these seniors who expect them, right? Like there are reasons why people can't go outside, whether they're bedridden or maybe they're just scared. And so we're trying to avoid that at all costs. And so we'll continue to fight.
Thank you. And I do see that people do, bring a lot of stuff with them, as much food as that they can get. So,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, and then finally, we have Eric Diaz.
Hi, council member. Hi, community board. Quick question, council member Marte. For the district needs statement, we have to kind of choose between children, right? Cut the NORC, cut the senior center, often decisions you and other council members have to make. On seniors, it sounds like, I just want to make sure I'm getting this right. It sounds like the home delivered meals are kind of what you anticipate to be on the chopping block. And so therefore you would advise us as a community board to prioritize funding there versus other senior service areas. Of the 6 areas you mentioned earlier, the home delivered meals is the one that you're kind of most worried about. Am I getting that right?
That one and our older adult center, which are our senior centers. Those are the 2 things that I feel like would be the most devastating for seniors, especially from their testimonies and from the, when I visit a community center or when I meet with executive staff at all these nonprofits. Those are the ones that they're more worried about. And it's such little money compared to the city budget. When you think about $106 billion and to fully fund the, home delivered meals and older adult center, it's just adding additional $12.6 million to it. And so these are things that can easily be restored and not cut. But I think those are also a priority because we know how much they can affect folks.
Great, thank you, and for all your support, all the orgs, starting with Vision Urbana. Shout out to Vision Urbana.
Okay, thank you for all the questions. So Councilman, I think we'll let you go. And if we have any other questions that come up, I'm sure we do, we can just get in touch with you.
Great, and I'll format this doc so it could be shareable. And I just want to give a shout out to Berenice on my team. She's my budget director. She's on the call now. And so if anyone has any questions about any other city agency, feel free to reach out to her, and we're happy to talk about it or answer any questions you might have.
Oh, no. Oh, wait, can you wait, Susan? Oh, did you have another question, Susan?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think by the time the community board votes at the very end of the month, the budget will probably already be agreed on, right?
I expect the budget to go later than it did last year. Last year, we agreed on the budget, I think, in the second week of June. I don't think we're going to have a budget until at least the 28th, 29th, or even might go into July, just the way things are developing right now.
Because I just wanted to add, one of the reasons we wanted to hear all this was not just for your vote now, but we're writing our district needs and finalizing it next month. And this tells us where the problems are. Also, we're scheduling consultation meetings with the agencies for September. So the problems you're telling us right now are issues that we're going to be asking about in those meetings also. I know you're aware of that. I just wanted to explain that for everyone else who, about the urgency of our votes and what we're doing with the information.
Yeah, and one thing we can provide, especially for this agency, after the budget is agreed upon, we're happy to let you guys know what got funded, what didn't, and especially as you go into fiscal year 2025, and advocating for what our community needs.
That would be really great. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you all for being on and for all the work you do. Thank you, May, again, for giving me the opportunity, and Susan. Have a great evening.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening. All right. Okay, so we'll move on to our regularly scheduled program. The next item we will talk about is the Windsor Hotel. It is to be a shelter for the new migrants. So we have with us Can all of you who are speaking, I know Destination Tomorrow, the service provider, is here, as well as DHS or DSS. Or could you all,
I'm not
I'm
sure.
sorry,
who's
I'm not
here.
sure which ones.
I'm not sure who's here from DH.
I'm
from
here.
DHS. Oh, Haley,
Could you
great.
speak up?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Can
All right.
everybody hear me well?
There's a lot of background noise somewhere.
All right, 1 second. Let me turn off the fan.
Oh,
Apologies.
could everybody put themselves on mute? It's someone else, I think.
Okay, not sure if that was my noise.
Oh,
Can
that
everyone
is
hear me
better.
better now? Fabulous, great.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
is
so
better.
much. Great,
Okay,
thank you so much for having us.
Okay, so is it you and somebody else?
Yes, so it's myself, Haley Nolasco, the Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs at the Department of Social Services. And I'm joined today by my colleagues at DHS. I have Program Administrator Dion Vega with me this evening. And I also have Destination Tomorrow, which will be here, which is here as well. So Sean Ebony Coleman is the founder and executive director that will be presenting this evening alongside me with members of his team.
I think I'm hearing feedback. Are other people hearing that?
No.
It's from her colleague.
Yes. I'm hearing it.
Who did you say it's from, Larry?
The person last name Vega. I believe the computer is feeding back through the speakers.
I'm in a different location. I don't understand how that would happen, but I'll mute myself.
Okay.
Okay, well, it seems to be working. Okay, so
great.
Haley, the way it will work is that you and your colleagues and Destination Tomorrow will give your presentation, and then we will take questions. We generally take questions from the committee members first, and after that, everyone else. Okay, so you may
Sounds great.
go ahead and start.
Okay, great. So thank you so much again for having us present this evening. So as it was mentioned earlier, we are presenting this evening on the Windsor Hotel, which is a sanctuary facility shelter for asylum seekers that have been coming to New York City. So as you all know, the Department of Social Service, Department of Homeland Services, we do have a legal and moral obligation to provide shelter to those in need. And since spring of 2022, we have experienced a wave of asylum seekers that have entered the city, and they are now our New Yorkers. So since that time and ongoing, we have been working diligently and have had staff and providers working around the clock to offer supportive services and shelter to our New Yorkers. This location is located at 108 Forsyth, and the population is adult families. This is a smaller location, so the size is about 40 units. And the provider, as mentioned before, will be Destination Tomorrow, which we are very happy to work with, and definitely looking forward to continue to build that relationship with such a great and intentional organization. The location, because we are here, and of course we want to work in transparency, the location is currently being staffed and ran by DHS overtime staff, as well as temporary staff and the National Guard. Oftentimes when we mention the National Guard, folks may think that they are on site in an enforcement capacity. They are not there in an enforcement capacity. They are there to assist us with administrative support. So to date, we have cited 135 emergency locations, and this is a 5-borough effort, all under DHS, the 135 locations. So at this point, we are working with, getting support where we can. So that's where the National Guard comes in, as well as the temporary staff, to help and support DHS staff while we're onboarding and supporting our provider organizations as they come on board. The Destination Tomorrow is not on site as of yet, but I'm very happy that they are here to introduce themselves to you all so they can talk about some of those services that they will be providing once they are on site. The reason why we do that and we wait a little bit for the provider to come on board is because we want to make sure that they are full capacity on the location to be able to take it over and be able to offer all the great robust services that our clients so very much need. In addition to that, we do have security on site. Security is 24/7. The security is being managed by FJC. The adult families that are on site are receiving 3 meals a day. They are, being supported the best way that we can at this time. If there's anything that they need as far as like assistance with getting to their appointments. We do support with offering transportation, and we, pretty much assess what their needs are and offer them linkages to the community. I do want to say thank you so much for the community support. Since we've been there, we did open this location early March. So I know that there's been a warm welcome. A lot of our clients feel like they've become a part of the community. So I just wanted to extend a huge thank you for the community for helping our New Yorkers feel welcomed while they've been here. And having said that, I'll pass it on over to our, who will be our service provider for the location, Sean Ebony Coleman, to talk a little bit more about Destination Tomorrow and the great work that they have been doing and will be expected to do at this location.
Hey, Haley, thank you so much for introducing us. Thank you so much to CV3 for having us. I am Sean Ebony Coleman. I'm the founder and executive director at Destination Tomorrow, the Bronx LGBTQ Center. Our center opened in 2009 under the premise of economic empowerment. We believe that we need to give folks the tools they need to be successful. So our model is job readiness, financial literacy, GED programs, life skills, because I thoroughly believe you can't expect folks to seek and maintain independent living if you're not giving them those tools to do so. So that's part of the reason we wanted to begin doing housing. It's because we wanted to make sure folks had the tools and resources that they need. This isn't our first endeavor. We have an emergency housing unit of 32 up in the Bronx, in the Pelham section of the Bronx. We provide services and housing for trans and gender nonconforming folks 25 and over. The reason we chose that population is because if you're familiar, there's LGBT youth housing that goes up to 25, and then there's LGBT senior housing that starts at about 55 and goes on, but there was nothing in the middle, so we wanted to be the provider to capture those in the middle. And again, we wanted to make sure that we were giving folks the tools that they needed to be successful. In addition to just doing direct service, Destination Tomorrow is also a grant maker. We receive $1 million a year from Gilead Science to go back into community and find smaller organizations that we gift the money to those organizations. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the organization, about our goals for this site, and just to build relationship is our goal.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you so much, Sean. So happy to, if there are any questions, we're more than happy to support and answer.
Okay, so I will, so as I said, you should raise your hand and I will call on you. The first person is Susan, followed by Carrie, followed by Ayo. Susan Stetzer.
Okay, before I ask my first question, though, I'll ask a pre-question. Who will be living here? Are these families or single adults, or who, what population is this?
The population is adult families. So that is a family that has, it could be a child or a family member that's over the age of 18.
Okay. So I just want to say, as I know there's tremendous amount of needs for these people, obviously. And, is there, well, I think one, it would be really good to have a contact, because so many of the people in the community do want to support. And I think it's important to have a contact and a relationship with the provider. We've had experiences in, unfortunately, in some other shelters, not DHS, where it's very difficult to be able to help support people. I'm kind of curious about the emphasis on finding jobs and that kind of thing, because it's a minimum of 3 months before they can work, if they even get a permit then. Isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, the latter part of your question was breaking up a little bit and I couldn't
Okay, I'm
catch it.
sorry. I was curious about the emphasis on like finding jobs, that sort of thing, because my understanding is that the bare minimum of getting a work permit is 3 months and generally longer. And it just seems like there's going to be a lot of needs before they're going to be permitted to look for jobs.
So that is actually accurate. So with this population, it varies. So everyone that's coming here, their immigration status could be at different points. So there are individuals that may be paroled and may already have work permits. There may be individuals that do not have work permits as of yet. Work permits are unfortunately not a city issue. So it's not something that the city could really move too much. It is on the federal level, but what we do is that what we do and the provider will be doing when they come on site, they will assess what people are in that moment. If they are in their process and they have working papers, then they will get, linkages and support with securing employment if that's a possibility. And if that's not a possibility, then they would just still be at that location and be able to be connected to supportive services on how they could become employable when that time comes, or at least supporting them with being linked to whether it's their appointments or their applications for those work permits with under their asylum seeker designation that they're seeking. And they'll also be connected, because that may not be an expertise that the provider has on site because it's immigration based, but DHS also works very closely with our sister agency Moya, which does have the Welcome Center that also is supporting folks with that part of the working process. I'll also say that there are individuals that are, there's a population that really doesn't want to work. That's something that we've seen across the board, and folks are finding work via, traditional and non-traditional means. So folks are working or figuring out how to work.
Well, I know people are finding jobs, and, I absolutely don't blame them, but it's very difficult because what they're doing they're put in a position where we're forcing them to do something they're not allowed to do. I just think I don't know how to deal with that.
Yes, I totally understand. So I know for us, from an agency perspective, of course, we're only offering folks jobs that are, legal work, jobs with working permits. But, just understand that folks are finding ways to work, but we're working within the means that we can. If folks do have working papers, then we'll connect them to those services. And if they need help with obtaining them, then we'll make sure that we're connecting them to facilitate that process.
How can a new migrant possibly have working papers?
So with that point, so what I mentioned there, everybody's process is different, and everybody may have, I don't want to say everybody, each case is very different. So I can't necessarily speak too much about the immigration piece because I'm not an expert there. I just understand that folks may be coming here at different parts of their journeys. So there may be some individuals that are able to work depending on their specific parolee status. And when I say parolee, it's not like a criminal parolee, is an asylum seeker parole status. So they may be able to work, but that's contingent on a case-by-case basis. So that's not, something I'm, too privy to speak about, but I just know that all the cases are quite different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Who do we have here? We have Io, Arnett. First Io and then Arnett.
Carrie was next, but if that's not the case, that's fine with me.
Oh, Carrie. Oh, no. Carrie is next. I'm sorry.
Io
Carrie
and I
then
go way
Io.
back. So you go first.
Absolutely.
I missed you,
no,
Io. Go
Carrie,
ahead.
Carrie, I'm letting you go first.
No, I just want to flag that, along the same line of our new migrants, there has been a lot of reported cases of domestic violence. So I just want to flag that, if, when we are addressing mental health support, that is something a priority, because there has been a lot of reported cases of domestic violence within these hotels. And so, while we are, searching for additional resources, I just want to make sure that this is prioritized as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for flagging that. That's something that DHS does take very seriously. We do have policies and procedures that, if God forbid something like that does happen, that we would follow to ensure the safety of the person that's experienced the harm from their partner or whoever it may be. So thank you for flagging that, because there are, very stressful moments, and we understand that we have to make sure that we're alert, but we definitely do have practices in place for if and when something like that was to occur, that we would be responsive.
Great.
For sure.
Thank you.
And if I may, we have counselors and case managers in place already, because we deal with intimate partner violence within our community and at our community center. So they already understand the red flags, and we have processes in place so that we can deal with it as well.
Thank you, Sean.
Okay. Now Io, Arnett, and then Carlin.
Thank you. So hello, Haley and Sean. Thank you for all the great information.
as I think many have already pointed out, this is a community that wants to help. I mean, there are just so many people and organizations in this community that welcome asylum seekers. And so that said, I am the co-chair of LES Ready, which is Disaster Preparedness and Long-Term Recovery Group. And as everybody knows, emergency management, for example, which is one of our government partners, does not usually deal with situations like this, but we are finding that emergency management is opening facilities. Haley, this might be more for you. We have emergency management, Department of Homeless Services, Moya opened up, and there's someone else that opened up, but, oh, and the state. When you said that there are 135 sites, were you talking about a combination of all of them, Haley?
No, I was speaking specifically to the DHS shelters. So there are more sites.
Would you happen to know the number by any chance?
I do not know the total number, but to your point, this is a citywide effort now, so there are multiple agencies that are involved. So you do have the Office of Emergency Management, as you mentioned, that is really working on those respite centers. We do have HPD that's also been supporting as well with some of the other shelters, as well as H&H. So we have, this is a full city effort now because of the amount of shelters that we've had to open, and we've had to think very creatively as a city on how to meet the need. So there are other agencies that are working to this. So there are definitely more sites, but I just don't know the number, but it's definitely 135 as of today for DHS.
So LES Ready is a coalition of 38 community-based organizations, all located in Community Board 3. They provide housing services, healthcare services, employment services, youth services, seniors services. All of the organizations that have been mentioned so far in this meeting are members of our coalition that, you know, trains for and prepares for disaster preparedness, whatever form it seems to take these days. It's not like it's just man-made and or human caused and natural disasters, but others that we find ourselves in. We have a monthly meeting, and we are inviting representatives from each of those entities to our meeting next Thursday at 11 o'clock in order to give our entire community a sense of all of the asylum seekers that are in our community, to let us know how they can be helped and how they cannot be helped. Depending on what facility they're in, there are rules and regulations that guide what can and cannot happen. And I think it, you know, we had St. Bridget's opening up 2 weeks ago through emergency management, and it was a surprise to many of us and also a secret, which did not make some of us very happy, because we have partnered with agencies for so long. We want to know what is going on so that we can form, build coalitions of support that can help based on what help is needed. So for this, Sean, I didn't see a lot about your organization, but am I correct in assuming that there's a New York-based organization, and that there are Destination Tomorrow organizations in other parts of the country like Atlanta, or are they totally separate? And welcome, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And yes, you are correct. We have the location in the Bronx. We actually have two locations in the Bronx. One on 149th and 3rd Avenue, which is our main office. And then we have one at 2134 Barnes Avenue, which is the residence, but it's also a food pantry. And we have a food pantry, and our academic enrichment programs are run from 2134 Barnes. And then we have a youth drop-in at 448 East 149th Street. So we have a drop-in center for LGBT youth. And then we just opened a site in Atlanta, Georgia, a year ago. And I'm happy to announce we just received some funding from down there too, from the city. First LGBT organization ever to receive funding from the city of Atlanta. So we're incredibly proud about that. So we do really good stuff, and I appreciate the warm welcome.
Yeah, we're really, really excited to have you here. So what I'm asking Sean is to be able to have a meeting with you before we have our LES Ready meeting, and maybe introduce you to our community of 38 organizations. Those were member organizations, but you know, the meeting's not limited to just their presence. And at the same time, just for everyone else, been having lots of conversations with Susan about this. Going to try to get a representative from
each of those agencies or one agency who can speak to the numbers that are in our community and all of the other things that I've mentioned, so that we can work in coordination and not duplicate and not, start working on things that will not be accepted or that are not helpful at this time for asylum seekers. And
Yes.
so Susan Stetson
yeah.
is going
Okay.
to share my contact information with you and yours with me.
Okay, and I dropped my email in the chat, but
Thank
I'll do it again so it'll come back to the top. So anyone that wants access can, and I also wrote down that I needed to, at the very least, reach out to you to formally introduce myself and see how we can collaborate. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, May.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you're connecting. Okay, we have quite a few number of people raised their hands. I'm going to call on everyone, but I would also like to spend maybe another 15 minutes or so on this agenda item before we move to the next one, which is also very exciting. Okay, so the next person will be, we had Ayo, will be Arnett, followed by Carlin, followed by Eric.
Oh, hi.
Arnett.
Hi. Good evening. The question really was for Sean, but I think I'll sort of segued into it. I wanted to ask, listening to Haley describe the asylum seekers that are going to be residents or are residents in the shelter right now. Everyone's on different levels. And you also mentioned you had case managers. I wanted to know, have you, and apparently I think this almost answers the question, are you familiar with our settlement houses in Lower Manhattan, so that hopefully you could be able to use our resources and not have to rely on things that you may know from the Bronx or other places that are not local to the area? And how, from this seems to be a new sort of modality for you, how have you built staffing to be able to accommodate the actual asylum seekers on their different levels? Like, if they're not able to work, are you familiar with vocational services in Lower Manhattan, maybe helping them learn English or some sort of vocational study, OSHA, whatever we have that can help them get ready for job readiness, as well as our mental health facilities. We have, we said these are older families, so they're 18 and over are the residents?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to mention our local school. We have our superintendent on the line here. So how are you able to gauge and find resources for the people that you have, knowing that everyone is on different levels, is what I'm asking you. Are you familiar with the Lower East Side and our resources?
So thank you for the question.
Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
Kelly, if you like to go first, Haley, and then I can respond.
Okay, no worries. Great. So I think that you bring up a good point. I'm also a huge advocate and a proponent of hyper-local solutions. So I do believe that the best resources are always close by. So it's always great to know how to build those partnerships. And I think this is what meetings such as this are really helpful and beneficial for, because we get to learn who are some of those players in the community that we can really work together to build partnerships and see, like, okay, what are those resources that are available, so that we could create those linkages. Especially now that as we're waiting for the provider to come on board, us knowing about what is available will be really helpful for us as we come across clients that have specific needs, that we can be able to connect them. And even after, when the provider comes on board, I'm sure that, building that partnership will be very helpful for them as well, to know what's available. So when those case managers come on board, they know how to best support their clients on their caseloads with what they may need. So I definitely say I welcome the connection. And if you have an email address that we can reach out to you on, or just at least have in our Rolodex that we can reach out about, to learn who are some of those other individuals or community-based organizations we should be connecting with, we want to be able to do our due diligence to connect.
Okay, thank you. Oh, okay, so Arnett, are you done? Yes.
Yeah, this wasn't a long one. That's all. No, thank you, Haley.
You're very welcome.
And thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so next is Carlin, followed by Eric, followed by Deborah. Carlin.
Yeah, hi. I was just curious, this is a city-funded program. I was curious how long the term of the contract with the hotel is, and what is the annual budget allocated so far or planned?
So we're still finalizing the budget right now, because we're still waiting for the provider to come on board, of course, so I don't have that information readily available. But I will say is that as of right now, these are temporary contracts, so they're as of right now, I believe it's a year, the contract, and then we're assessing because of the need. Of course, understanding where we currently are, we don't know what the future may hold, but as of right now, it's a year. And then, it's a year as of right now. But of course, if anything does change while we're in the midst of this crisis and figuring out how to respond to it, we'll of course continue to keep open lines of communication with the community to let you all know how long we'll be there.
Okay, so the plan is to put one family into each room. This hotel is basically an SRO. It's a simple travel hotel, tourist hotel, without much facilities at all.
I'm sorry. So you're saying that the hotel itself doesn't have facilities? I wasn't sure. If that was
It's built as a tourist hotel,
Okay.
and it's really not equipped to handle a family. I mean, there are no cooking facilities or anything. So meals are brought in for them.
Yes, and we forget. So before the need with the increase of asylum seekers that we now have in the city, we were working to get out of hotels for families, because to your point, we understand there are kitchens, and it's not the most ideal situation, and we could definitely agree to that, and that's something that the agency has been saying for some time. But because of the need, we've had to, unfortunately go back into shelter. So there aren't kitchens, unfortunately, but we do offer them food. And the food does come in every day, daily. They come in cold, and then they are able to be reheated or warm and reheated, in the microwave. So that's available. But they do get 3 meals, but unfortunately they're unable to cook in their rooms. They're unable to bring perishable items. I think that's important for folks to know, because if you all ever hear in community, like, oh, they're not allowing me to bring my food in, that is actually a policy measure for a few reasons. One of the reasons is, of course, a hazard. There's a lot of folks living in one place, so we want to make sure that there aren't any fires and making sure everybody's safe. Secondly, we want to make sure the rooms are clean. They get cleaned every day. And if there's food or perishable items inside, they could get mold, bring vermin. And we want to make sure everyone's living in a clean environment, both in the hotel, but also outside. So the community also doesn't, have to, deal with, unfortunately, like anything of that nature. So we do have that as a policy. So if you do all hear about that, we do not allow that. Unfortunately, there are meals they're able to, of course, eat out. If they want to eat outside and get different food, they're able to do that. If there's a cafeteria or a luncheon place, you hear me? Long day. A lunch area, they're able to eat it within their lunch area, but they just can't bring it to their rooms.
Okay. Eric followed. Thank you, Eric, followed by Deborah.
Hi. Quickly, first question again, I apologize if it might sound like a silly one, but Haley, your role is in what agency?
The Department of Social Services.
Okay. And then the second follow-up is for 108 Forsyth Street, and forgive me if you said this already, but what is the total, I guess, hotels in the Lower East Side currently being utilized to house migrants that are under your purview?
So I can follow up with that information. I don't want to misspeak. I believe it's 2, but I don't want to be wrong. I could be wrong right now. Unfortunately, I don't have my computer on me, phone.
Okay.
But I'm happy to circle back with that information to the community board so that they can share with you how many we do have.
That's great. And last question, I think, is all migrant shelters and housing are kind of under DSS's purview?
So like I mentioned before, it is a multi-agency right now. So we have 135 shelters, but there are other locations where asylum seekers are staying. So it could be the respite centers, they can be the HERCs, the humanitarian relief centers. So it can be, either. But for us, as of today, we have 135 shelters that we are managing for this specific emergency.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll be sure to follow up because I want to make sure the community board has the most up-to-date number of emergency shelters in the district.
Oh, yeah, that, I think that would be very helpful
Mhm.
to us. Deborah.
Hi, thank you, Haley, and thank you, Sean, for your presentation and the information. It's super helpful. I actually just had one little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't put your name and your affiliation in the chat, if you could do that so that I can make sure that that's in the notes. And then I guess just out of curiosity, Haley, is there, for the migrants who are being housed and as they come in, is there a time limit or are they able to stay indefinitely?
Yeah, so they are able, so similar to shelter, any other shelter, they're able to stay until they get on their feet. Typically, on average, an Indigenous New Yorker in shelter stays around about a year. That's the usual length of stay. People can stay less than that or a little bit more than that. It depends on everybody's circumstance, and similar with this asylum seeker population. They do have different barriers. So to what Ms. Stetzer was mentioning before, there are some different barriers, but we are seeing that some folks are either reuniting with family members. So it's just like a quick stop, getting connected with their families. They may find work and may have, found a place to stay, or they do need to stay a little longer to get on their feet. But on average, someone in shelter stays about a year.
I think, sorry, one moment. Okay, I don't see any additional hand raised. If there is any more questions, please raise your hand now. Oh, Io, yes. Yeah, okay, you may ask one more question, Io.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry. Just following up on that last one, do of all of the facilities that you're running, are residents able to stay all day long? Or in some of them, are they there overnight and they have to leave? What's the structure? That's for you, Haley.
Yeah, they're able to stay all day long. What we do ask, we'll never have folks leave. Like, we'll never ask them to leave the shelter because, like, maybe they don't have somewhere to go or they just don't feel comfortable leaving. They can stay within the facility. What we do ask is that they leave their rooms when there's time for cleaning. So if their unit is being cleaned, we ask that they step out until the cleaning has been completed and then they could go back in. But of course, they can stay in the hotel. They don't have to leave.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And thanks, May.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I do not see any additional hands raised. And so this will, that concludes this agenda item.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, if there are any additional questions, I mean, we'll
Oh.
of course be able to ask. Oh, Larry?
I was going to point out Indrani had a question.
Oh, okay, Indrani. Last question, Indrani.
Oh,
She's not here anymore. Oh, there she is. Oh. Indrani?
Oh, yes. Hello. Sorry, I'm on my phone. I've been having issues with the internet, like I think everybody else has this week. Haley, you had said that people they get food and they can warm it up, but then, like, as somebody had mentioned, there's no kitchens. So where are they warming up this food if they can't bring it to their rooms?
I can answer that. Good evening, everyone. So we have in the lower area of the hotel, there are microwaves where they can heat up their food. And then in this location, there is no area, there's no cafeteria area or area where they can eat. So in this location, we do allow them to take the food back to their room. And they have been really good at making sure that they discard any unleft food, and then when the rooms are clean, we make sure that we take that out as well.
Okay, so thank you for correcting me there, Dion. So I appreciate that update.
You're welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more about this as time goes by. And we love to coordinate with Destination Tomorrow and everyone who's involved in this facility. Okay, our next item will be about the Seward Park High School court. Okay, we have who do we have here? We have several representatives from the Department of Education. Is that correct, Susan?
Yes. Did you want me to introduce the item?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just to let everyone know how this item came to be on the agenda. So the community board, like the elected officials' offices, as part of our job, we get complaints from constituents. And we received complaints from a number of residents that they had previously been able to use the Seward Park High School courts, which are on S6 just below Grand, that the community had been allowed to use the courts some evenings and weekends. There was community time. These courts belong to Department of Education. They are not parks. And but there had been a tradition of allowing this. So in investigating further, we found that the courts had recently been renovated and they were now, of course, they were being used by the school, but besides being used by the school, they were being rented out to organizations who had leagues, you know, games, certain groups that had soccer games or other kinds of games, and they were renting them out. We further then found that this school actually has a third party that is in charge of renting out the non-school use time to these leagues or teams for use. So this caused two issues of concern. One was the courts are no longer available for the community, but also that this is a residential area and there were lights, there were amplified sound, loud noise, you know, screaming, yelling associated with sports was often going on late. There had been some conversations with the principals and with the residents before the community board got involved. Once the community board got involved, we worked very closely with Council Member Marte's office. Max Deutsch from that office is on right now. And we've been working with Maisha from Department of Education, who is on this call. So I think we have not been able to resolve anything, and we thought it best to put this on the committee agenda. What it's become, I think, more of a policy issue. So it started off like a service delivery complaint issue, but I think now has evolved more into a policy issue. And that's one of the reasons that it's now on the committee. And Maisha, could I turn it over to you?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And I want to thank you, Susan, just for inviting us on to discuss the Seward Park campus, the usage of the soccer field. But I did want to introduce some of my colleagues.
Thank you.
Okay, Monica, I think she's now a panelist. I think.
Oh, I kept trying to promote her before, and I think she was refusing. Is that Monica Major?
Yes.
I couldn't promote her. I think
she had put in the chat. Okay, that's okay. Well, if you loop back around and
I'm going to try and do it again.
Okay.
She has to accept it.
Okay. Odette Dugan. She's also on the call. She is the Chief of Staff for Superintendent Centron, the New Vision Schools, and the Deputy Superintendent Matthew Mazzaropi. Did I say it, Matt? You guys
Correct.
can
Thank
unmute.
you so much.
Yes, I practice. He is the Deputy Superintendent for New Vision Schools that oversee Seward Park High School campus. So just wanted to give a brief overview. The campus has been there for some years, great alumni association, robust, great school, really invested in our young people. It is my understanding now, so I'm going to call on all the historians on this call, that at one point in time that this park was used by the public, but was most recently renovated, I want to say in the last couple of years or so, and belongs to the school. And so it is no longer a New York City Parks property. Major renovations went on it is my understanding that Department of Education, or what we're calling New York City Public Schools, funded this renovation, and that the park was also in really bad and poor in despair, in poor shape. We absorbed the park, and now the park is the fenced property of the school. Yes, in order to use the location, it has to be permitted. The permitting extended use office allows permitting to go on through the school and through the permitted office. And yes, you are allowed, if you have a league, to play soccer or other events there, but it is a paid process. And I want to keep saying that, paid process. We've even had instances in other boroughs where city agencies would like to come in to use fields or the school auditorium, but there is a permitting paid process because staff has to get paid, custodial staff, sometimes school safety staff, so on and so forth. So in order to maintain the field or even a school building, you have to pay the permitting processing fee. So that is where we are right now with this location. I know that the deputy superintendent and the superintendent's office will work extremely hard with the community on some of the complaints that have come in about noise and lights and generators, and trying to curb the amount of time if people are going over the usage of the field. And I think we're in a better place, but I will defer to you, Susan, to see where we are. In terms of the usage of the field being waived, we are not there yet. I know that is a conversation that is often coming up, but again, it is a costly proposition in order to maintain that field. That is something that I know that the mayor and our chancellor always talks about, the school being in a school community. And in theory, it sounds great. And perhaps we can do some wraparound, or maybe Councilmember Marte can go to his colleagues in the city council and talk about how to fund organizations that can't afford to pay that fee, so we can have them waived. But that's where we are right now. And I'll stop. And Odette and Matt or Monica, if you wanted to jump in and chime in, by all means, please do so.
No, I think you've represented the situation currently. I mean, we're really interested in hearing from the community board. We've tried to work with the community, and I personally worked with Mr. Deutsch and just trying to make sure all invested parties are communicating. But I'd love to hear from the community board.
If I could just ask another question, are you saying that, I thought this was always a DOE property. Are you saying it was formerly a parks and it was changed? It was always DOE.
I believe it was a DOE. That's why I want the historians on here. There's some mixed feelings about who maintained and owned the property. I believe it may have always been a DOE property, and parks may have helped out with maintaining it to a degree, and then they realized that that's something that they could not do any longer.
So I believe it was always DOE.
Yes.
And if it actually had changed from one agency to another, I believe it would have to go through the community board. I would like to also say just about free use. The community board uses PS20 once a month, other than it during shutdown. We use it free once a month, including having school safety there, custodian, everything else. So the school does, as a sister agency, does certainly at least accommodate other agencies for accommodating public, because we serve the public. So I think there definitely is precedent for DOE to waive fees, or to have certain times available to the community.
And I think the dispute. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm breaking protocol, so I'm gonna.
No.
So did you want to answer that question?
Yes, I was going to say that the dispute is not organizations using it. It's the community member wanting their family to be able to use it. You know, I think the school and the campus works with community agencies to use the space. It's just not available for anybody to come off the street and skateboard, smoke, drink, and do other things, especially after the renovations.
And if I could say, I don't think the community was asking to use it to drink, but maybe we want to hear from
No,
the
I'm not. No, I'm
community.
not saying that. I'm saying that one of the reasons it's been sheltered more is because they were having those issues prior. And when they've made the investments through many agencies to increase its value and to have more students be able to use it in more organizations, they want to keep it in that state.
Okay, so if I could just suggest that if that's the issue, that's possibly, and there were, that's possibly something that we could help with, and perhaps have, if it was available at certain times, perhaps we could have the police available at those times, or, it's something worth investigating if that's the reason. May.
Okay, well, we have a couple of committee members with questions. And that policy issue you were talking about is, I think, of interest to us as well, because I thought it was just a service issue. So Arnett followed, and then Indrani.
Hi, we're talking about the property where the tennis court was on Grand and Hester?
No, this is the right, well, it's right below Grand Street. Isn't that correct, Maisha?
Isn't it above Grand?
Yeah.
It's adjacent to the school. It's by the high school.
Across the
across
street
the
from
street.
it.
Yeah, across the
Across the
street.
street from the high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's across Essex, or is it?
It's across Essex.
It's okay. It's diagonal from the school.
Right.
Yeah, and actually you'll see now the signage about, like, if you want to sign up for the league, you can scan the QR code.
Okay, now I haven't seen it. I just because that's the only field that I know of is the one that's adjacent and not parallel to the school, and it used to be tennis courts. And there's also a part of near the on the side of the co-ops as well as the park.
Yeah, well, Hester Street has that private little area that actually belongs to the co-ops.
Okay, that's what I thought we were referring to. That's not
No,
what
that belongs to the co-ops, that narrow little like alleyway type thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not the alleyway, the actual park where people play tennis, not the alleyway.
Okay.
I'm talking about the actual park. Because I thought at one point,
No, not the
that
park,
was
not Seward Park where people play tennis. North of that, it's like all concrete. There's no grass. Or all, hard surface.
Okay, well, I'm trying to see it in my head. I don't see it. But at anywho, was there never a time, or is it advantageous to find to have park and recreation part of that park? Is that not an option to have another city agency a part of it, if at one point it was part of the city? And I understand that
it's
the downfall became just saying because the community was using it in ways that wasn't appropriate, it then diminished the park. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not a park. Parks help maintain it for a while. It is a city-owned property, which is under the jurisdiction of Department of Education.
Okay, all right. I'm having
when you figure it out, can we come back to you? Because it sounds
Yes,
like
please.
you. Okay.
I'll raise my hand again.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so next is Indrani, followed by Carrie.
Hi, so I used to use that park quite often, like there was a great track there. And so, to have that track taken away, we had the park taken away, so it just seems like it would be advantageous for us to be able to use it again. I mean, I certainly wasn't degrading the park. So it just seems like our spaces are becoming limited. So if you could work together so that way there's times when, you know, I could walk the track or do something in that park.
But I have a question, Andrani. How I just because I just want to play it back. How many years ago do you think it was this track?
Like I was like it changed, I think 2021, like during the pandemic. So before the like during the pandemic, I remember using the track and, you know, just to go in, walk, and I, you know, would have friends that would work out there as well. You know, we do have a track further down by Canal Street, but we also lost like the track and walking spaces and a place to go when we lost the park by the river. So.
Right. And I think also, you know, during the pandemic, that was the whole idea that we opened up places that maybe weren't necessarily open to the public, that we were allowing people to access them to get out more often. And so perhaps that is also why you were able to use it during that time. But I thank you for just giving me some historical context on that.
I remember before pandemic, people were using it.
People were still using
running
it,
and jogging. Yeah, just you know, individuals, you know, and then they leave.
Okay.
Okay. So what did I say? Oh, it's Carrie. Carrie is next. And then I'll get to everyone, but I think we should also hear from Max.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I think just hearing all the questions and the comments, I think it's so important to be transparent in terms of like who owns what. So we're not even sure, like, you know, who owns the park? Is it the DOE? Is it the Department of Parks? You know, so I just want to be clear about that, and I'm happy to share like who owns that so that we know who to talk to.
It's DOE.
It is us.
So
Parks were maintaining it for some time, but it's New York City Public Schools that owns it. Right.
Good to see you, Miaja.
Hi, Superintendent Jane.
Yes. So, but I also think it's important that, you know, we continue to share, you know, what the ongoing issues are so that, you know, we don't have to wait until these meetings to resolve it.
Max?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So, yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, you know, thank you all for coming to the meeting. So I think a few things, I guess, one, I'll just say also, like, you know, we're talking about the history of the park. I grew up down Grand Street. You know, as a kid, everyone always played there. My friends played basketball there. It's really, I think, always been a space, you know, kind of a community park. Like, I didn't know, I assumed it was part of Seward Park until it was closed down, just because they're so connected. Then I guess, yeah, because I don't know if any of the Seward Park residents are here. So I guess I'll just kind of, you know, express some of the things that they've, you know, told me about. I kind of want to go back to Susan mentioned some of the noise issues. And I know that
Max, do you want to introduce yourself as?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So I'm Max. Yeah, I'm so used to the other community boards. I forgot I don't come here very often. But yeah, Max, I'm one of the community liaisons for the council member. So yeah, you know, it started where some of the residents reached out to us because some of these soccer games were going till 10 p.m. Sometimes even later than 10, because if the game's not over, you know, they're not going to stop just at 10. And you know, we met with the principals. And so, you know, at first, you know, they told us that the games would be, you know, the ending time for games would be moved down to 9 p.m. But even for a long time, and I don't know if this is every day, but, you know, at least I've heard from some of the residents, so they still go past 9 p.m. And so, you know, it just creates the noise issues of the whistles, the running, the yelling, you know, people are cheering. And I think, you know, kind of another issue is just kind of in terms of the communication. As I'm back in November, I was told that after Thanksgiving, the games would stop for the winter. That didn't happen. I was told that in the spring, there was no I don't remember the name of the organization, the third-party organization. I was told by the principal of the school, you know, there were no plans to continue this in the spring and the summer. Clearly, you know, like that's still happening. So just, yeah, like, I don't think there's any, you know, malicious intent involved, like purposely misinforming me. I think it's just kind of confusing, and some of the community engagement has been confusing because people, you know, we've been told one thing and then that doesn't happen. And I think, yes, and I think the noise issues, I do want to elevate those noise issues because, you know, we've a lot of, you know, parents, young kids, 7 p.m., you know, their kids are already getting ready for bed. 8 p.m. their kids are going to sleep, they're having dinner. Then I have these games going on, this cheering. You know, this isn't a park. This isn't a park. This is a, you know, a school field. that ideally, when the school day's over, whenever the after school's over, that's when it's kind of supposed to be closed, and people have gotten used to that's when the activity ends here. Now it's going till 9-10 p.m. So that's just kind of a big shift.
Okay, thank you, Max. Io and then Deborah. Io had her hand up a long time ago.
So one of the reasons that I kind of do, and I don't like to come to community board meetings, is because I hear about these things that have been going on for decades. This is not a new problem. It is not a problem of just one parent wanting to use a school for a birthday party or her family. In the 90s, I headed the United Parents Associations, a citywide organization external from the Department of Education. And it represented over 200,000 parents in the public school system. And use of school property has always been an issue. At that time, there were the permit process only included custodians agreeing as to who could use it and who could not use it. And often, there were with just some very discriminating practices involved, which excluded approving community use of schools in some of the neighborhoods. That said, that process was, changed. And now the process is, if you want to use a school property, you have to fill out an extended use permit. That permit has to be approved first by the principal or the joint principals in the school. They and only they are the ones who can determine whether or not an organization or individual or anybody else can use the school. Only after they approve it does it go to the permitting office, who, if they don't have any problems with the process, they go ahead and they approve it. Part of the problem has also been that these leagues that have used the schools property and parks property have capacity and the wherewithal. They have been grandfathered into using these public spaces over and over and over again at the expense of the community. My granddaughter went to school in this neighborhood. She was involved in sports. Trying to get a permit to use the East River Park for track was almost impossible because of the leagues, which I hear in this conversation, basically taking over the properties to use. There are situations, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that I'm not, where there is joint jurisdiction of school and park property. An example would be the neighborhood school, which uses the park property as a playground and put a lot of money into renovating it over the years. But after school is out, and once after school is over, that school gate is open to the public, despite the millions of dollars that were put into renovating it. And I do not think, if I want to use that park or Seward Park, or any place else, that I am going to want to use it to drink or to do something wrong. And I'm really offended by the mention of it, as if, well, we know that the community is going to behave in a terrible way. But also, whether it is a community or someone else, if it is new or if it is not, it is going to become worn. It is going to have to be maintained. Nothing stays new forever. So, I am really, really upset that this issue is still going on. There's no secret process. There shouldn't be any kind of misunderstanding about how you permit to use a school. It's not that expensive necessarily, depending on how many spaces within a school you want to use. It can be as little as $250, or it can be more.
Okay, I'm sorry, Io, can you wrap up? What you have to say is important, but could you just wrap up?
I'm going to wrap up. I just want to say that I don't care if it's new or not. It should belong to the community. And there should be a way to limit the use of people outside of the community from commandeering exclusive use of school property that should be shared with the community it is in. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Deborah and then Arnett. And then after that, we're going to wrap up or maybe decide what we're going to do next. Deborah?
No, I just wanted to point out that I think possibly some of the pressure on that space is that in addition to the East River Park being closed, the Lionsgate field in Sarah Roosevelt Park, which was a soccer field that was permitted for a lot of outside groups, is not open. So so it's just increasing or decreasing the available space and increasing the pressure on those spaces. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. Arnett and then Susan.
Okay, going back, because I still can't remember where space is at. Going back to if it's permit, then there's a time limit associated to the permit, if I'm correct. Maisha, is there a time limit?
There is.
Okay. What happens when the occupants go over that time, and what happens when the occupant goes over the time frame, Maisha?
I don't want to speak from the extended use standpoint. I believe that is why the deputy superintendent and the principal and we're on the call, so that if there are concerns about going over time, we work with Susan and you all to kind of talk to those permitted holders to say, listen, we've received complaints about time going over. I think things, if I'm not mistaken, and Matt, you can chime in, have gotten better. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that we're working towards mitigating the time after the 9 o'clock time. We understand, folks are trying to settle in, homework has to be done, kids need to go to bed, people need to wind down. So we're working with the permit holders to adhere to those times.
Is the park closed by the DOE after it's been used? So has any of the employees made any complaints about overextending time, because you have to pay them, correct?
That is correct. I'll let Matt. May I, Susan? Can Matt?
Well, it's up to May, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, May. I'm sorry.
Matt, only if you're going to clarify that, but if it's another point, then you have to wait for Susan.
No, I was just raising my hand trying to follow protocol. I didn't want to interject, but it is to answer the question. Yes, we've been working with the school to attempt to manage the time so that they do honor the permit. We've had no complaints from DOE staff that it has gone over. So, but we can continue to work as we have, trying to manage and maintain that the activities do end at a reasonable hour. We will need more information when people go over. In my last communication with some of the principals, they were managing to make the time ending earlier. Since then, I haven't heard a new complaint that they went overtime until this evening, when a couple individuals were just speaking. But we will always work to maintain the appropriate times.
Okay, because there seems to be a disconnect, because if the community is complaining about people going over time and the employees are allowing people to go over and not reporting it, then there seems to be a disconnect with the DOE staff, in which we shouldn't have to have a meeting. There should already be a running tally of those permit people that are
okay.
I could clarify.
Okay, all right.
This is not, it's the issue. So I'm glad this is coming up this way, so we can kind of separate the different issues. So one is the noise issue and one is the community use issue. The noise issue, that, as Max said, some people are going overtime, but that isn't necessarily the issue. It's also been permitted till like 10 o'clock. So so the noise issue could possibly be broken down. One is, are they going over, which I would think would be a relatively easy thing to deal with and would not have to be dealt with at the committee. The other is, how late are the permits? How late is it being permitted? And I would say the issue here is this is a school field in a residential area. It was never meant to be used by teams late at night. So, you know, the school is going to permit it. They have the right to do that. So one issue is how late can the permits go, which might be a lot earlier than they have been. And then how do you enforce it? I don't think that's a difficult issue. I think the even bigger issue is this is not like, say, the neighborhood school, which actually belongs to the Parks Department and schools allowed to use it during school hours. And the permitting, like in East River Park, that's a park and that goes through an online permitting process. So this is a school field. They made up their own protocol because it's not just that anyone in the world can do that. And that's the issue I think the committee needs to deal with. Historically, this field, not all DOE fields, but historically this field has been used by the community. It is now renovated. The school is renting it out so that they can get some much needed money. Can there be time allotted for the community? And I think that's an issue that this committee hopefully will weigh in on.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Susan, we're basically looking to see if we can have a set aside for our community as well as reduce noise and the time frame.
Yeah, so those are two issues. One is, can we have the permitting when it is permitted be at an hour, like maybe 8 o'clock, because as Max says, that's when kids go to bed there. And two, as far as the enforcement of that, we can deal with that. We don't need to do that at committee. And then can there be a set aside time for the community as has historically been done in this park? And I would just like, since Max has been actually working on this longer than I would like agreement from him that those are the issues, if that's possible.
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up perfectly. So thank you.
Okay, so why are there all these hands raised? We had a similar issue with another school many years ago. The school was actually attached. It was a yard that was attached to the school, and
But we didn't have the set aside issue there. It was only noise,
okay.
and the teams went away.
Okay. So yeah, so at this committee or tonight, well, we don't have a resolution or anything yet, but do you think our committee members, do you think that we can maybe vote on some bullet points, as some of what has been mentioned, the set asides for the community, the time limits, or, in terms of the permits, not the time limit, but like the latest time in terms of the permits.
If that's the motion, I second it.
Or were those the two things we talked about? The timing of the permits, and then also some kind of set aside that makes it accessible and affordable to the community to use.
Not affordable.
Oh, that's never affordable, just accessible. Okay. Okay,
Affordable is free.
Yeah, okay. Well, it won't be free. Okay.
It should be. I mean, a waiver for the community would be free use by the community.
Okay, so we can also, okay, can we talk about waivers?
Which has historically been the case here. I mean, if you have kids, you have high school, like Max said, when he was a kid, they were, they had sports, and the kids had sports in there.
Right. Okay. So there's three things: a set aside for the community, a waiver for the community, and some time constraints on the permits. Committee members, maybe you can raise your hands if that is some kind of resolution you would be interested in voting on or passing. So this will be similar to what we did last month with that roadmap. We didn't have a resolution for you to review, but we had some bullet points. We voted on the bullet points, and then later on, we drafted the resolution that we would vote on at full board. Okay, so hands raised, we have Arnett, Carmen, Deborah, Larry. I think it would be a good idea. There's other people who have raised their hand, but they're not officially on the committee. Maybe they will be later, but not right now. Carmen, okay. All right, so I think we have, a good majority of committee members who are interested in those 3 bullet points I mentioned. Do I need to repeat them again?
Yes.
Okay, so the 3 I mentioned are in terms of the use of this court, this field, set aside for the community. What do we call it? A waiver for the community. And then the third thing is some time constraints in terms of the permits, like the lateness, how late it can go.
I would.
I don't know. Are we suggesting a time? 8 o'clock? Is that the right time? No.
If I could go back to the first one, I'd like to suggest that the set aside be free use I don't know that the waiver has to be a separate thing. It's just set aside a time for community use.
Oh, okay. So that implies that it's a waiver as well? Or it's free as well?
Think you need a waiver. I don't think a waiver, I don't understand how the waiver fits in. I think we can just be set aside time for the community, and that would be free.
Yeah, I think it should be free, as long as it's understood.
And well, we could put that in the resolution that would, be free and available to the community, as has historically been done in this space.
Okay, then that is clear. All right. Okay, so we'll vote. Okay, so we have interest. This was just a temperature check. We have interest in those 3 bullet points. Well, rather 2 now, because 2 have been sort of consolidated into 1, and that will be in the minutes. And then we will have we'll vote at the end. In terms of the official vote, we'll vote at the end of the meeting on everything. But this is what we're doing right now. Any other questions? I see that Kristen and Deborah, did you have your hand raised?
I did. It's just a housekeeping thing. I don't know who on the call are new members of the board who are waiting for committee assignments, and for the minutes, I just want to make sure that I get all of the new members who are at this particular meeting captured in the minutes. Susan, do you know?
I could send you the chat.
Okay, will you do that? Will you do
Sure,
that,
I'll do
please?
that tonight.
Thanks.
Yeah, on our board, on our website, all the members, all 50 are on, but they haven't been assigned committee, so they're not officially part of our committee.
Okay.
And not a committee member.
Okay. Well, but I for the minutes themselves, it's listed, it's asking for other members
board
presence.
members, yeah, okay.
And I have Indrani, Carlin, and July.
Right, there are others. I'll send that.
Okay, thank you.
So Deborah, also on the chat, some people are identifying
Yeah,
themselves.
okay, thank you so much.
Okay, okay, so we, okay, there's just one more hand raised. I'll take that and then we'll move on. Kristen Hotel. Did you have a question or comment?
I think her comments in the Q&A.
How about now?
No, I'm sorry,
hear me?
not anymore.
Is she here?
Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I really appreciate the resolution. I'm a Seward Park resident and have been for the last 30 years. And it was just like such a sudden change last year. The field was closed. Nobody knew what was going on. We were all assuming it was, renovated to be accessible again for the community. We were told there would be new tennis courts and whatnot. The field is now exclusively a soccer field. There's nothing else on there. There are no more basketball courts. There's no ability the track is gone. And I think it was exclusively done in order to become a money-making a vehicle for the school. And I think that's upsetting. And people coming in from all over town to play here with the lights on. Last year they played till 10:30 at night. And I have actually been in contact with the principal, Scott Conti, when this first started last year. And several things were promised and they're not exactly kept. I mean, he was saying he would limit the league playing to certain seasons. He would say it would be spring and fall and he would skip the summer. So I think that's another compromise to maybe look into, to restrict the limits to maybe the spring or the fall and not play in the summer when everybody's out and also on their balconies. The lights are still on. He also said that the lights were such a issue of complaint that he will not have the leagues play after dark. That has not happened this year. I think the limit, my impression is that they're supposed to stop at 9, but the lights are still coming on. And people living on the lower floors, they have this light in their apartment and the noise till 9 o'clock. And I just feel like there's no honesty and no communication about what the reality is, who's playing there, when, and for how long. And if you would just get that information, that would be very good.
Okay, so, I think I had asked the question, so we said in terms of the time, did we have a time? I forgot what we said.
Well, I would
No,
propose to
I'm
make
asking the committee members. Did we have a time?
No.
Committee
I didn't hear
members?
that.
Committee members. Susan, did we have a time? Or Deborah?
We didn't have a time. I suggested 8 o'clock because that's when young kids go to bed.
Good. I think that would be great.
Okay. Okay, so for the committee members, do you agree with 8 o'clock? Raise your hand if you agree with 8 o'clock. Okay, Carmen, Larry, Deborah, Arnett. I agree with 8 o'clock.
I'm sorry, 8 o'clock for what?
Who's this? Who is this?
Carrie.
Carrie. Oh, no, 8 o'clock for the
stop time.
The time
for
constraint,
permits.
the stop time for permits. Like no later than 8 o'clock.
So can I just make a recommendation? I just think that we should invite the principal or Superintendent Cintron to be here to provide.
We did. We've
Oh.
tried.
Carrie, we're here.
Oh.
The deputy, Richard Cintron's deputy is here. I'm
Oh, okay,
Superintendent
okay.
Cintron's chief of staff. We are
Okay,
here.
I just want to make sure that they're represented and they're
We-
okay with it. Okay.
We always invite all stakeholders.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make sure, that's all.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Okay, so it shall be 8 o'clock. Okay, and that will be captured in the minutes. All right, so we are ready to move on to the next agenda item. And that will be our, okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you. And thank you, Susan, thank you for just working collaboratively with us as well as Max. And I'm glad we were able to come onto the platform to at least have a dialogue about this. So I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
So our next agenda item, which is also a fairly big one, is our district needs statement and budget priorities. We are now, in the process of, defining our district needs and budget priorities for the next fiscal year, which is 24 to 25, right? The year July 24 to June 25.
We're discussing? We're discussing FY 25, which will start a year from this July.
Right, so it's from the year 2024 and ends in 2025. Okay, yeah, like the school year. Okay, So we have, yeah, Deborah, did you raise your
Adam's
hand?
here.
No,
I'm sorry, I just had a question. So looking at the minutes, I just want to make sure that because I haven't done this for a while, so I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. Susan, am I changing the order in the minutes to reflect what we actually did, where DHS was number 3?
No, you don't have
and
to worry about
I
that.
don't have to do that. And then I thought that Councilmember Marte's conversation or his presentation was about.
It is because he was only available at that time.
So it still goes under the update district needs statement
Yes.
and budget priorities. Okay.
Yes, it could go.
Thank you.
Renee, could I just mention who is here?
Yes.
So I think Carrie was here to speak to that, and Adam Blackman is here to speak to our district needs. And I think that's it, because Chris already spoke to one section. Is that correct? That's incorrect?
Yeah, right. He spoke to this senior citizens
the
and
aging.
older. Yeah. the
Adam
aging
is
part.
here to talk about after-school programs, and Carrie is here for the DOE.
Okay, yeah. So like I said, so we are, yeah, I guess primarily district needs. So we are here now, we're here now to discuss our district needs, and we offer those of you who, I think most committee members were on the committee last year, and I see some new people who may join our committee. If they decide, if they pick us on their form. But what we often do is we invite speakers, from the different areas of our district needs to come and talk to us, what they are seeing as the needs in their areas. So as Susan said, Carrie is the superintendent of School District 1. So she's going to talk about the schools. And Adam Blackman is with University Settlement. And they run many after-school programs. So he will be talking not just about the after-school programs at University Settlement, although they run many, I'm sure he'll talk about them, but just generally overall what, he's seeing on the ground in terms of the needs with the after schools. So this is just 2 parts. And before you heard from Chris Marte talking about the seniors. So these are only 3 parts of our district needs, but we're taking it a piece at a time. So the district needs is like a snapshot of our community. Just like when you write a grant, you tell them what the needs of your community are, and this is what exactly this is. It's not a policy statement, but it is just painting a picture of what our community looks like and what it needs. It's often used to inform our budget priorities. Sometimes it is even used by like grant makers who are, trying to, sort of like map out what they want to fund in different communities, and they read it. It's used by researchers or who are, trying to, they're getting information about, really hyper-local information about each community, and they'll go to the community board's district need. Each community board has a district need statement, and you'll find it on their website, just as ours is on our website. So the other side of it is budget priorities. The community board has an advisory role to decide how agencies will spend their money. And we get to each community, we get about 25 program priorities and 40 capital priorities. That is the whole board, not just our committee. So each committee will vote on some priorities for their committee, and then it's all collated together, and then the full board will vote on everything. So, okay, so let's get back to, we're back to district needs right now. And we will have, there's Carrie and there's Adam. You can, do you want to decide among yourself who will speak first?
I suspect Adam might be shorter. He has fewer things.
Oh, okay, Adam
Susan,
then.
how do you know that I have a long list of needs, Susan?
Because we have a huge amount of needs in District 1.
Well, we have a very big school system, okay?
No, actually, before Adam begins, I want to give a huge shout out to University Settlement because Families Thriving is in every single one of our schools because of private funding. And because of Families Thriving, all of our families that need additional mental health support is being supported by Families Thriving. So go University Settlement.
Okay, thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. That's really great to hear that it's making such an impact. Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Blackman. I'm the director of the University Settlement's Houston Street Center. For those of you who aren't familiar, Houston Street Center is kind of a unique collaboration between the University Settlement and the YMCA, the Chinatown branch. And we, on the University Settlement side, provide a range of programs in that space that includes programs for seniors, programs for youth and young adults with developmental disabilities, particularly autism, and supports for their families as well. And we have a space rental program. You know, we're actually not strangers to having to ask sports leagues to leave at the time when they said they're supposed to leave, but within our spaces. Our space rental program is meant to provide, you know, community access. And so I believe some of the board meetings may have occurred there as well. And also to bring in really essential revenue, which kind of dovetails with the next part of this. So the other part is that we run a Sonic middle school after school program. And then we also have a continuation. That Sonic program is called Stride, and Stride to College also provides more college readiness, SAT prep, and in conjunction with the University Settlement's larger college passport department is building out more increased supports for getting for college readiness. So as far as specifically the after school needs go, you know, our particular location, it's, you know, we're not school based, so being a center based location is its own sort of you know, thing. But as far as the relevance for kind of the larger landscape of after school programs, from all of the DYCD based, you know, community building, from all of the conversations with the department heads, senior program directors who run the many different after school programs, from the youngest to the oldest within University Settlement. We do see one really glaring similarity, which has to do with funding that provides salaries for the staff on the ground. And that has become, so the group leader position is the actual, you know, staff that are caring for our children, that are providing enrichment activities, that are fulfilling mandates for STEM and leadership development and all of these other wonderful and important things that we're supposed to be working on. Well, it comes down to really having good group leaders to be able to execute that. And unfortunately, based on the way that the kind of DYCD contracts are kind of worked out, we can't pay them very much. We can't compete with retail. So it's really, really hard to recruit, and it is affecting across the board. And so, you know, the quality and the number of applications that we see coming in the door, then about retention. We see problems throughout the year. We have had some wonderful group leaders come in this year, and they just couldn't stay. They had to, you know, we're used to having, say, college students where we have to be flexible with schedules and things like that, but we try to keep people in the loop. If you're off a semester, you come back and maybe you're good for next year, that kind of thing. That's sort of par for the course. But when it's just, you know, people just can't afford that, even though this is sometimes, you know, can be a step in a career involving child development and education. We need to be able to pay better. Unfortunately, is what it really comes down to. So that's where the top line budget priority comes into play for us. As far as you know, extra or not extra, but additional areas where supports would be useful because in particular, there are specific requirements around STEM education, and because not every, you know, group leader or person coming in the door is going to have that knowledge base, those skills. Sometimes we have to work with subcontractors. And that could be STEM, it could be arts education. Those are the two primary ones. But leadership development as well can fall under that. You know, and so when we work with contractors, we can get really wonderful programming. But obviously then it's a subcontractor, we have to pay for it. And so the costs can be you know, higher for us. And so those would be the other areas where supports would actually not just allow us to provide the service, it also allows us to meet the required mandates of the contract with DYCD. So that's kind of that's why I'm the short presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, Adam. Oh, okay. Before we go to Carrie, were there any questions for Adam? Okay, I don't see any now. So let's move on to Carrie. I was just going to talk about schools.
So I'm looking at the number of participants and it keeps decreasing. So I'm going to make sure I talk fast so more people can hear our District 1 needs. So first things first is Adam, thank you so much for representing University Settlement. As I said before, Families Thriving has been a huge support for District 1, and we are incredibly grateful for Families Thriving. So just a quick update along the same lines of asylum seekers, migrants, newcomers. Currently in District 1 under my portfolio, there has been a little bit over 300 new students that just enrolled in our District 1 schools. And so and for transparency purposes, we are extremely grateful because we are under enrolled and we need more children and we welcome them with open arms. But one of our needs is to make sure that they have adequate transportation. And so the buses has been really tricky to navigate. Getting them Metro cards has also been very challenging. And so what schools have been doing has been purchasing their own Metro cards to give to the parent so the parent can bring the child to school, because the buses have been so delayed due to new routes or whatever the situation is. So what I'm asking for the board is if we can support in getting more Metro cards for the schools, that would be super helpful. Because first things first is many of our children prefer to go to school with their parent, and the parent do want to take their child to school. However, they need Metro cards. And so because the Metro cards take a long time to get it processed through the DOE, because we do have, because it has to do with money, we have to make sure that it's all carefully monitored and registered. However, that also delays in making sure that all of our parents who need Metro cards get them. And so what I'm asking for is additional funding for Metro cards so that our children can come to school on time. Many of our newcomers and asylum seekers have been coming late to school because the school buses have been rerouted. And I don't know what the solution is, but one of my solution and that I'm proposing here is so that our parents have Metro cards so that they can bring their own child to school. We have provided every single parent maps. They know how to get to every single D1 schools. I have met with every single newcomer parent to make sure that they know, how to get to the school, how to access resources. However, there are some things that I can't control, which is funding. So I am just asking for that support here. That's one. May, can I propose another ask?
Yeah, just the 300 students you were talking about, additional, or the 300, is that, or are they primarily the asylum seekers?
All of them are.
Oh,
David,
okay.
Sorry, David, can you please go? Sorry, my son is flashing his light.
Oh, they primarily are. Oh, they are. They all are. Okay.
Yes.
And that's 300 over all the schools in District
300
1.
plus in District 1.
Oh, okay. And so the
They
families
have been
are
coming-
living.
They have been
live
coming
everywhere.
late to school. Yeah, they're coming for all different kinds of hotels, but they're coming late to school because either the buses are being rerouted or they don't have Metro cards, so they're actually walking to the schools. So it's been extremely challenging. So all I'm asking for is just transportation support for our newcomers. I do have some really, really positive news. I was able to get private funding for all of our newcomer families and children during Summer Rising. And so during Summer Rising, all of our newcomers, they will get to go on multiple trips to get to know New York City, which is their new home. They're going to get to go to Broadway shows, baseball games, different trips to get to know New York City. Additionally, we hired many teachers who will be able to teach the parents English, and that's what they wanted. So this is exactly what we do in District 1 to support our migrant families.
Okay, yeah, we were actually, I was talking to Arnett a little bit before, and yeah, I was actually interested in exactly, about this, these newcomer students and what needs or what has arisen from that. And because the schools, these students are not just, will be here for quite some time. Oh, just getting to school?
Yeah, it's getting to school, and so as we know, even pre-COVID or newcomers, transportation has always been a need. And so now it's even more of a need. And so, our parents, our newcomer parents, they're like, you know what? Let me bring my child to school. However, I need Metro cards.
Okay. So I guess I can see that transportation to school has become more of an issue than before, because they're coming from all over Manhattan.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Oh, we have some hands raised. Susan and then Arnett.
I was wondering, I know last year, two of the big issues were both nurses in schools and social workers in schools. And I'm wondering what the status of that need is in District 1.
So nurses, listen, like we are just prioritizing, while some schools may not have a permanent nurse, every day they may have a different nurse, but we have a nurse, and so, we know what to prioritize. And the fact that we have a nurse in every single school every day, we're good with that. Number two is that many of our schools have applied to be community schools. And we have, received a lot of grants. So social workers are in most of our schools, and schools without a full-time social worker, we have received private funding to make sure at least they have an intern. So, we're doing, everything we can to, fill in the gaps and the holes, as we know, like the system is under-resourced, so, that's why I just want to communicate the high priority needs, which is our migrant families. But thank you so much for bringing that up. But, to your point, we have nurses. It may not be permanent nurses, but at least we have a nurse, every single day.
And that's every school, not every school building.
Every school building has a nurse every day.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Arnett and then Indrani.
Hi, yeah, I'm happy that we have school nurses for every building, but I'm also concerned with having the new having resources to get the 300 children acclimated to our school system, and as well as we are looking into having a new literacy curriculum.
Yep.
Right, and having people with that are hopefully will become bilingual or learning English. I think they may need some assistance in even getting into transitioning into our new literacy program, as I know it's going to be more phonic driven, but if we're driven in phonics and you don't understand English, the phonic part is still going to be a really missing piece, a big missing piece. Should we also include additional resources for those that are not English learners for anticipation for these new programming, as well as still advocating for more nurses and social workers, because having it in one building, one school may need more assistance than another, which would lopside the resources that we have. I'm happy that we have one for each building, but thinking of having, and hopefully maybe having more asylum seekers come in to boost our enrollment, we will probably need more resources in that. What do you feel about that?
You're absolutely right, Arnett. So that's why we've been really intentional in making sure that we are assigning these newcomers to specific schools who have the capacity to serve them, which means they have a full-time ENL teacher, which means they have a pantry, which means they have a functioning PTA, and they're fully staffed. So we've been really intentional. We haven't been just randomly assigning our new students. So that's one piece. Second piece is we've been really trying hard to make sure that not just our asylum seekers, but our students can interact with the new students. And so what happened is we've been getting I think it's called pocket finders or something like that. Have you heard of that before? Like pocket translators. So the 4 schools that we have, all the asylum seekers, every single student have one of these devices so that they can communicate with students. That was our priority, to make sure that our students, whether you're a newcomer or just our regular our students who are already enrolled, to make sure that they can communicate with each other. So we prioritize to make sure they have devices so that they can understand, number one. Number 2 is that we want to make sure that the teachers have training to support all of these diverse learners. So one of the most prominent languages that we have right now is Portuguese. So what we're doing right now is I have identified 3 teachers who are fluent in Portuguese. And these teachers would be working during the summer, who will be translating the new curriculum. Listen, the new curriculum, to make sure that our newcomers will have access to this K-5 literacy curriculum. And that's why we opted for the second phase, which is 24-25, because we wanted to make sure that we had a whole year of preparing our teachers to transition to this curriculum, to make sure that all of our diverse learners will have access.
Yeah, so Carrie, I just wanted, maybe you don't have the answer right now, but to think about later is in terms of how the community board advocates, are there certain, given this new group of 300 students, I mean, it's just not 300, right? There's a lot, more resources needed just for them, even if they're at the schools that can help them the most. But if there are certain funding streams you think that we should be advocating for, so
do.
that, we need to know those things too.
So May, what I was about to say is that now the trauma that these students have experienced coming here is showing up in different ways. And so either they are like extremely like, like there's a lot of triggers. And so mental health support is exactly what we need more of. And so I don't know if additional social worker is going to solve the problem, but we just we need to have more conversations of the trauma that these children have gone through. Because talking to these parents and their journey in getting here is devastating.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
I don't know if our schools have the capacity to, right now, again, they're just so happy and grateful of being here, but the trauma shows up in different ways.
Right, and they're going to be here for a long time too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we just need to be able to call it out, what they've been through. And I don't have a solution to that, but I'm just calling it out right now that, based on the circle, because again, like I said, I've met with every single parent. We have circles, and the stories that they have shared to be here has been so traumatizing that I don't have the
You don't have the answer. Yeah, I know you don't have the answer, but yeah, we just wanted to know for now. But whatever answer you have right now. But Susan, did you?
Yeah, I think it's also, important to remember that the way the city budget works for community board advocacy, we are talking about July 2024. So what we need to be figuring out, and I don't know how we do it, are we going to have migrant needs for migrants a year from now? What will that look like? Our district needs is not going to be talking about what we need now or this, this summer or this coming school year.
Okay, thank you.
What I'm just asking the board to advocate for,
which we can do,
social, emotional health and well-being of these children.
I know we want to support that and do that, but we have to, along with that, this is the time we also, and I also even, think of the questions. What is it when we will be meeting with DOE in September? What is it that we want to ask them about because we're concerned about funding? And I know one of the things we'd like from you, offline, is your capital needs that haven't been funded yet also.
Oh, so some of the capital needs is really the parks. We know that all real estate is really limited in Manhattan.
No, school capital needs, not the parks.
Like auditorium.
Well, do you need electrical? Do you need air conditioning? Do you need renovation? Do you need an elevator? Do you need, what is a playground, often playground, kitchen, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so no, we need all those upgrades for sure in many of our schools. And so I'm happy to give more details. And I know Arnett has asked me to submit specific, and Arnett, I apologize if I haven't given you specific schools, and I will. But, it's just that I just wanted to leverage this opportunity to share what our bigger needs are. I mean, not immediate needs are.
Yeah, so for us, it's 2 buckets. There's a lot of immediate needs in the program, but we get to advocate about the capital stuff too. So, we want to utilize that as well.
Okay, I'm
Wait,
sorry.
so are you, so is capital needs, does that include like those automatic bottle fillers? Is that?
Yeah, whatever it
Oh
is.
my
Yeah, that
God,
you have.
we
Yeah,
need that at every single school. Because children don't drink enough water.
yeah, yeah. The
Right,
CEC.
Water
no, it's
fountains
not,
don't work.
it does not include that. May.
Oh,
We're
it doesn't.
talking
Oh,
about the
sorry.
little
I'm
water
sorry.
things. The capital need is like
Oh,
over 3
okay.
years, and it's, like $50,000 minimum or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
you guys.
But the thing is, just to explain, we get 40 capital needs, so we can fit in, it's not one or the other. We can fit in all your capital needs if you give us the list of what's not funded. But for the programmatic, like social workers, nurses, transportation, that's very competitive. We only get 25 for all the agencies in the board, so that gets much more competitive and much more difficult to prioritize.
So it's important for you to
I
really
went
think
off
about
track,
it.
but
Okay. All
thank you
right.
so much, Susan and May.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Arnett, did you have another question?
No, not just another question, but Carrie, if you can remind me, I can myself, the CEC, we have a rolling tally of capital needs, and I don't know why it escaped me. I'm going to reach out to Danielle, who is our administrative assistant, who sent out the capital needs for last year. And because our capital needs for the most part it's been like 10, some of them are 10 years old. And it's been
Thank you, Arnett.
Our SCA that won't allow this or, that, and it's kind of a lot of bureaucracy and convoluted, but I'll ask Danielle to send what we already have so that we can have a better gauge. And then if we want to ask Carrie any other additional questions to try to go through the minutia of what can and cannot be done, then we can come back to Carrie later. But then I'll ask Danielle just to send the whole list, because it's about 10 pages, and I'm so used to hearing it and like, oh, this is not gonna happen, that I just completely forgot that we have a rolling list. So I'll have her send that to Susan, and then Susan sends it to May, and then we can all discuss what we can put on. I mean, discuss with Carrie what we can put on, what we can't.
Okay, that sounds good. All right. Indrani?
Yes,
And then
I had,
Deborah, yeah.
I just had a question about your original need for Metro cards. So, because I was just wondering, are you anticipating summer school, or will that be in the fall? And like, would you need the Metro cards for also the parents all year long as well?
All year round. It's just to make sure that they have access to go into places. So it's just incredibly hard when you hear from families that they've been like ticketed by police officers because they are jumping the what is that called?
The turns. Yeah, they got the subway tickets.
Yeah.
Right. I think my question was
and-
more about the focus on the parents, like,
All year round.
Wouldn't you anticipate that the kids by at least like the first half of the year should be able to get themselves around by that point? So I'm just curious, why would you need Metro cards for the parents, for the whole school year?
Why
Just out of
not?
curiosity.
Yeah, we're talking about young children. So even,
young.
we're talking about young children especially. So they, up these days, parents go, for young children, they walk their kids to school all the time. It's not like, back in the day when we were kids, it's very different now,
Okay. And the age is, age is important too.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, Deborah?
No, that's a really important question. But to May's point, they're young and they need their parents to take them to school.
Right, and they're not familiar with they're in a new city, so, or a new country for that matter.
Right.
Which they're, okay, so Deborah?
Hi, thanks so much for all of this. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. One of the needs that you outlined was to prioritize the student's social, emotional health and well-being. Are you looking for, funding to provide specific package programmings like Ruler, or could you be a little more specific about what that might look like in terms of what the funding would cover to meet those goals?
So I think the funding should cover professional development so that we know the needs of our asylum seekers. Their stories are all super unique and different, and so I think we just need to know what they are, and just strategies to support the parents and the children. Okay, so we all know that all of our newcomers right now are just super grateful and happy to be in school. And I have to tell you, when we look at the attendance rate right now, the children that have been coming to school consistently are our students in temporary housing and our students who are newcomers, really. Because they, not that the rest don't value education, but they make it a priority to come to school, and so, however, we also know that the trauma that they've experienced is showing up in different ways. And so I just don't think one guidance counselor or one social worker in each school can really properly address or support the trauma that they've been through. I have a student who has been walking for 6 to 7 months just to be here.
Yeah, that is a typical story.
And I have students that have been abused in so many different ways just to be here. So all that trauma, like we need, we need to know how to best support them. So that's what I'm asking for. I don't know if funding is going to fix it or whatever it is. I just want to call it out so that we are aware of what the needs are.
And I think the professional I was just trying to speak to Susan's point a little bit about how this is really for, like, not this coming July, but the July afterwards. But I think the professional development will be needed at that time too, because it's kind of ongoing. And I too know kids who have been here a few years already, and they went through that before. But it plays itself out like more and more, or you sort of have to maintain this social emotional, service or counseling or whatever you call it with the students,
Okay.
for
So
a while. So it is needed the year after.
I'm going to also be transparent. There's also been tension between, families who have been here for newcomers. My child hasn't been getting the services. And so now others have been getting this, so that tension is real, and so I'm not afraid to call it out because I experience it, and so that is something that I don't have an answer to.
Right, so it looks like that's another thing something also
I'm just
needs to be
calling out
dealt
the
with.
elephant in the room, right?
No,
but it's true though. I do, and so I have parents who can't pay for rent, and they're like, are they going to kick me out? And where they're going to place me? In shelters? Well, they're all full.
Okay.
So anyways, sorry, May, you invited me here. I'm going to be like talking.
Okay, no, okay. All right, okay, yes. Okay, so those are important
Right,
points,
Susan?
and thank you for speaking your heart.
Angel had his hand up and he just took it down.
Are you still here, Angel? Do you still want to speak, Angel?
Yeah, sure. I had two questions that I was curious about, specifically for the MetroCard program. Is distance being taken into as a factor in terms of who would qualify for them? And also, I'm really interested in what you, in a perfect world, what you would envision those additional mental health services to look like. Would they include any type of group services? Because I would imagine that some of the trauma that some of these folks are going through will be similar. So I'm curious, is it all individual one-on-one sessions or any kind of group offerings that might be available for possibly youth and their families?
So just to address your first question in terms of MetroCards, they're coming from all over. So, giving them access to MetroCards is just kind of like a broad stroke of support. So I can't tell you specifically where they're all coming from. So that's my first response. Second response is that we need bilingual mental health support staff. Many of them, again, speak Portuguese. Many of them speak another dialect that is not Spanish. That is like a dialect from that. I don't even know the name of it, actually. I forgot. But, the dialect that we all don't know, so communicating has been really challenging. So having bilingual mental health support is crucial. But I don't have the answer to that, And third is that, again, it's been really challenging to know what these families have been through.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think, I think we will have to, this is an ongoing conversation for sure. But I think today was very helpful for us. Okay. So just to update the committee, as you recall, we developed a list of questions to circulate to CBOs, just to get, a survey questions regarding district needs. So it hasn't been sent out yet, but it will be soon.
I will send it out with
Oh, no,
Catherine.
I'm not, this is not
I
for you,
apologize.
Carrie. No, I'm sorry. I just changed the topic. This is for the committee.
I apologize.
So yeah, this is something that the committee did last time. We, for our district needs, we developed a list of questions that could be circulated to the CBO community service providers in our area, like what are the needs they are seeing in any area, not just schools, whatever they do, whether it's youth or whether it's seniors. So I'm just updating the committee that it's going to be sent out soon. And so we'll have whatever we get from them, we'll also add. Okay. So Susan, could you remind us what we need to do next in terms of our district needs, or what's next on the calendar?
Well, we try to, well, first of all, the committee members all received, I guess in the last few days, last year's with the statistics updated that could be updated. And we're still waiting. Some things can't be updated till after the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of this month. So we need to know for the different categories, what do we need to change? What do we need to add? I mean, we've the last few years gone through kind of major upheavals. So it's difficult. It's not just updating, it's changing, and it's difficult to anticipate for a year from now. But what is it that we want to change? One of the things that Carol picked up in the office is that the land for the school was being held for us until 2023. It's still 2023. So we certainly need to change that section and need to do something about it. For other sections, we need people to read through and see what needs to be changed for the district needs that will be for a year from now, which is difficult. It's definitely difficult. Or do they not need to be changed that much, you know?
Well, I think we never try to predict the year from now. We just talk about what's happening now. You know, but it goes into the budget priorities, which are a year from now. So that's kind of the
Well, we do, but also looking at what we expect to happen in the next year.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
for instance, last year we knew all that extra COVID money was coming in and covered a lot of programs that we're no longer going to be seeing covered. So how are those programs? Do you want to put in, I would imagine, something about changes because we are absorbing so many migrants, asylum seekers in the neighborhood? You know, what do we want to say about that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely something we want to say about. Well, we need to talk about.
Yeah, but someone I think needs to write something up to be looked at next month. Because you're not going to meet in August, and then in September, you're going to start working on the budget priorities.
Okay, well, I know I could take a stab at, you know, I could work on the asylum seeker part. If anyone wishes to join me, let me know. Let me see.
And it may be that we might have to put something into every section, like even like in schools, we were, you know, we have been seeing a trend of losing children under 18 more every year. Now, all of a sudden, we have these 300 more students. So, you know, that's going to have to be noted in education. It's also going to have to be noted in the shelter section, you know, different sections.
Right, yeah, so actually, I just want to let committee members know, I mean, there are those 3 questions that we came up, there are 4 questions that we came up with at last meeting that'll be sent out. But I did add a 5th one, and it was exactly about the asylum seekers. It was to the CBOs, it was, well, what needs, what do you see that needs that you see that are more needed as a result of, you know, the new refugees or asylum seekers? And then they can answer the question. But most of these people they're not senior citizens, they're kids and then, you know, adults and working age adults. So those are the areas that they will affect. They won't affect the senior, the older adult section that much.
Correct. I would also suggest, I mean, I hope people have had a chance to read at least some of it. We can't be bringing up new stuff to start looking at next month and finalize it, because almost everything needs research and documentation. So maybe if people could read sections and send us issues or questions or what they think needs to be updated, maybe like within the next 2 weeks, so that we can be, you know, be prepared to research what's necessary.
Okay, so I asked also, Carmen, I had asked you about the senior section and had asked Arnett about the schools and education section. There was I don't have it in front of me, but there was a health section, a homelessness section.
I'll do the homeless.
And then there was youth programs.
Yeah, I'll do the homeless again.
Okay. Then there was a health and mental health section, which I feel needs up.
Yes, absolutely. But it's going to need a lot of documentation, because I think we're, you know, seeing a huge rise in mental health needs.
Right.
Yeah, I started looking at it, May, so I'll continue to look at it.
Which one?
The senior section.
Okay.
So could you let us know by 2 weeks if things need to be changed?
Certainly.
Thank you.
What should we do with the health and mental health section? Or who would be, or maybe have some new committee members? Well, when
Or
we're
new
on the-
members who are not committee members that might want to help.
Yes.
No takers.
Oh, we could call on you. Oh,
I'd be
Arnett
happy
raised
to
her
be a
hand.
community member.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was emailing Danielle before I forgot. What I heard my name. You want me to look over the district needs education section again?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and
okay. Carrie,
oh,
I'm gonna send you questions. See what make sure I can update properly.
okay,
Yeah.
and then right now we were also talking about the health and mental health part, that we need some help in, renewing that section because there's been so much development in the past year.
Can I
I'll
be
help.
a member in some way or the other?
Wait, there's two people talking. Who said I will help, first of all?
Indrani.
Okay, and Johnny?
In what
Yes.
section?
Mental health.
Okay, so May will have to send you the section that we have a color-coded section that shows which statistics have been updated, which still need to be updated. So so everybody should use the version that May sent to you last week, and May can send it out to Indrani also.
Okay, I'll do that. And then Johnny, I'll talk to you about it, how it works.
Thank you.
Okay. Somebody else asked the question, but I don't know who it was. Someone spoke up.
It was
Okay.
Carrie.
Oh, no, she's muted.
Oh.
Okay. Then I think we have, and then there's the new schools. The school at Essex Crossing. We just have to do something about.
So what I suggest that we do, which we did, I think 2 years ago, was have a
Mhm.
district level meeting with DOE
Mhm.
and tell that but we need to make up an agenda. We can have the meeting in July and, have other things on the agenda also, but specifically also have that.
Okay.
Wait, May, did you say there was a new school in Essex Crossing?
We're
No.
advocating.
Oh, okay. Can
You
I
know,
be a
the
part of the
land-
advocating? Because I know all the developers of Essex Crossing.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not, we tried to get them interested in work.
Do you know there's something that I just can't answer to. I'm going to tell you. It's because all of our schools are under enrolled. So they have been saying, so what makes you think that having a new school in this space is needed? Because we have so many empty seats in both Kelly McGuire's district and in my district. And so Essex Crossing has donated so much money to District 1 for after school programs, and they're trying to make up for the fact that they're, gentrifying our community, and they've been great. But that space we've been eyeing. However, what I can't seem to answer to is why is this space needed? Because we have so many empty seats.
Well, if you read our district needs, it says why.
No,
it's
I'm just letting you know what they're,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we
well,
know
but
that's what
have
they've
a
been
whole
saying, yeah.
Position paper, we have a whole position paper, we have district needs. But we went through their lobbyist a few years ago to try and get a public-private, where they could have a development with a school in it, and they just weren't interested.
No, they actually have a really, really strong appetite to support public school system. They do. I'm not.
They just don't want to build a school for us. That's all.
But you know what? They can't even rent all the apartments right now. So it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it's the argument that I can't seem to sort of, answer to is why is there a need?
Oh, you should read
That's
our
what-
position paper.
Yeah,
Exactly, May.
that's what DOE says, and we do have answers. Our schools, we have a list in our last district needs of the age of every one of our schools. We have schools 100 years old.
And more than
It's
100
the
by
building
now.
infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, keep keep going for it, because I'm going to support you in doing that, because we want that building space too.
Okay, all right, okay, thanks. Okay, so, is there anything else to discuss on district needs? All right, okay, so we are coming. Oh, what is this? Sorry.
I have something I'd like to tell.
Okay, we're just doing cabin season reports and updates, but what would you like to tell
This
us?
is that kind of update. So after I saw you this morning, I got an email from Politico asking me about the Allure nursing homes that we're supposed to be getting as part of the Rivington House deal. And I said, we're trying, and they actually wanted to help us contact the Attorney General's office. And I told them I didn't think that was appropriate, but we were certainly working on it.
Okay. All right, so I don't, okay, so let's go back to the cabs and CECs. I don't think any of us went to any meetings this past month. Well, let's look about the cabs, the hospital cabs. We will be, I think we have had a number, we will be actually looking for members to replace cab representatives. Because as you know, some of our committee members did not reapply, so they're no longer on the board or in the committee. So we have spots in some of the cabs, like at the, I guess the Gouverneur cab, Laura, and then there's the Bellevue cab. Laura Lugo, she's still on the board, but she's not in our committee, and she's no longer interested in going to the Bellevue cab. So we will be looking for replacement.
What are cabs?
Community advisory boards. So hospitals often have them, you know, certain facilities like shelters have them, but most of the hospitals have them. And as their community advisory boards, they have community members who sit on it. Often it's the hospital consumers that sit on it. And also there are reps from government agencies and from community boards at these hospital cabs. So we have reps at Bellevue, at Gouverneur, Mount Sinai, Beth Israel. Our representative also no longer reapplied to community boards. So she's, I don't know if she's still in the cab, but she's not on our community board. So again, we need to replace that. Susan, you were saying that the Mount Sinai Behavioral Health Center may also start a new cab just for that, in addition to their regular cab?
I don't know.
You're not sure?
But I'm actually supposed to be speaking to Brad tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'll
So you
ask
can,
him.
okay, so it's confirmed.
Suspect that they're not ready to be doing that yet. And I'm sure they'll reach out to us, but I suspect that that's in the future.
Oh, yeah, they haven't really opened yet. I mean, they're having some kind of, yeah, they're not fully open yet. So, but it'll be good to follow up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd like to throw my hat in the ring for that particular cab. I don't know if that's appropriate or whether I could do that. Just putting it out there.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. And also another hospital cab is the Presbyterian Hospital. You know, not Bellevue, the downtown Presbyterian Hospital cab also. We also need a replacement there. So we will, so if you're interested, let me know. Some of them, they all have applications. Some of them have been more complicated than others. Their requirements, you know, about participation are also somewhat different. Some, they just want you to go to their meetings. Some, it's a little bit more than that. So we will get all that together and let you know. And so this is for community board members, particularly this committee. We're talking about representatives from the community board to the cab of that institution.
Happy to do Gouverneur and Presbyterian.
Aren't you already on Gouverneur?
Yes,
Then you can't.
Well, you're
So-
on Gouverneur as a community, as a regular community member, right?
that is correct.
So you can't do both.
Yeah, you have to pick
For
one.
Gouverneur.
Yeah, no, you can do both cabs, but you can't represent two places on a single cab. You can only wear one hat.
I'll follow up with you guys. I think Gouverneur passed something where there's a term limit for community members. So if that's the case, I'll follow up with you, May, offline.
Oh, so you would, I see, you would.
And I could be as a cab CB3, but I'll follow up with you guys. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Also, can we update people on the mental health survey that
Oh,
the Hyacinth has been working on?
you want to do it?
Oh, okay. So as you recall, we, several meetings back, we talked about how it would be good to have a survey or a database of different mental health providers, particularly, so that community service providers or schools could make referrals. And I think at the time, Alicia had mentioned how when she works the public schools, she has a lot of resources for the kids, but the families need resources too, and they needed, something. So we hired a consultant who worked on a survey. There's a product right now, it's not completely finished. So it is not just a directory of service providers within Community District 3, but there's also a mapping and then a summary of the kinds of services they provide, the languages they offer. And, there's some like graphical information too. And then there's a map. So it can serve as a referral and then also gives us a picture of, what the state of mental health service provision in Community District 3 is. So these are all, there's not that many providers. It turned out it was less than 20. I think it was 15 even. These are all not for profit, and they're within our district. They're not like branches of a citywide or national organization, and they are they're not like in private practice, but they're like they're organizations that also that serve various income ranges. So we will. It's almost done, right? But not quite.
I'm trying
yet.
to remember. I thought
there was a few things that needed to be done, but it's almost there.
Yeah,
you were going to ask Francis to do something.
Pardon?
You were going to ask Francis to do something as well.
Yeah, so we have all the information. We just need kind of the directory formatted for easy use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we can share it out. So that's my update on that. Is there any other old or new business? Raise your hand if so. If not, then we will call the meeting adjourned. Deborah has a big smile on her face, and Deborah will take the roll call. And this includes voting on the Seward Park School Court.
Bullet points, yeah.
Yeah, bullet points.
Bullet points. And before I do this, Susan, where do I put your update about
Politico?
Yes.
I would put under the cabs and CEC.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something, just make a new section called old or new business, or that's what we usually do.
So you want me to add something older new business under cab and CEC reports?
I don't think you really, to be honest, you really need to add that at all.
Okay, fine, done. Okay, so calling and Carrie, are you like doing the hearts because you're leaving?
Listen, every time you invite me, I can't stop talking. So I just want to say thank you so much. And Arnett, thank you so much for reminding me and making sure that I'm on top of CB3. And, thank you so much for your advocacy, all of you. And I don't, this takes teamwork and family. And thank you so much for everything that you do on behalf of our community. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Okay,
hearts to you.
through. Here we go. Mei Lee,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa, absent. Ana Calderon,
Absent.
Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Larry Fenn,
Yes.
Deborah, yes. Arnett,
Yeah.
Rodney Washington. Rodney was here earlier.
Oh, he's still signed in. I don't know.
He's been having technical difficulties. Yeah, I see him popping in and out the whole time.
So I'm marking present or yes?
He should put his.
Rodney's
right in the
here.
chat or
Rodney's
something.
here.
Thank
There
you,
he
Rod.
goes. There he goes.
Okay,
Washington.
Perez,
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome. Carmen.
Here, yes.
Awesome, that is everyone. Thank you so much, folks. I guess we're calling this a day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, see you at
And
next meeting.
May, stay
Yes.
around. I want to ask you about sending these minutes into you.
Oh, yeah, okay. You want to ask me something or you're just?
Yeah, about the minutes. So everybody else can say, is that okay? Can we do that? Or do you
Well,
need to ask about the minutes? Okay, never mind. I'm going. Bye. I'll send you.
Because I have to stay on otherwise.
Oh, yes, you. Sorry. Okay, never mind. Never mind. I'll figure it out. I did this